to the Bomb Hole.
Bomb Hole Podcast.
It's going to be very hot. It's going to be very uncomfortable for everybody.
The Bomb Hole.
We're gonna slide down them big hills, you know what I mean, on the big, nice burgundy snowboard.
Okay, here we go. Another day in paradise. We are back in the booth at the Bomb Hole, which is presented by Wild Mike's Pizza, Solomon, and Pub Beer. Now, Stony Buds, how you doing, my friend?
So good, my dog.
Always love hearing that. Now, to my left, we have the Dingo in the booth today. The Dingo, what's going on?
What's up, boys? Hanging out. I'm here.
We are happy to have you. You know, we got a lot of stuff to cover with you because your life has been pretty badass. So, you know, one thing personally that is near and dear to me is that early Grenade era. The early that energy when it first started, and let's just dive right into the building of Grenade gloves. Man,
so I met Danny and Lane. I think the first time I met them was at Junior Worlds. Officially, I think in Italy. We had kind of hung out the year before at Junior Worlds in France in like 99 and 2000. And then I'd like made my move to Steamboat, where I'd spent a year to train with the Steamboat Springs Winter Sports Club. And then basically Joe Eddie was a kid living in Mammoth. Keenan Rice was living in Mammoth at that in Steamboat at that time. And we had opted to come back and move to Mammoth, where I like slept on Joe Eddie's couch. Joe Eddie was a pro snowboarder back in the day, like and made it to X Games, was pro on Genius, Oakley and whatnot, but was young, and then Keenan was too, and moved to Mammoth, where I slept on the Eddie's couch, like this tiny like little couch was like my bed, and in the living room was like where my clothes and everything were. And then Joe and his sister upstairs, and his mom. It was like 1.5 bedroom apartment with 4 people, and that following that before that, Danny and Lane had moved to Mammoth. Danny had won a couple contests and moved to Mammoth with his mom, and had enrolled into the school in Mammoth, homeschool where Jeff Anderson went, and then we followed. So I enrolled, Joe Eddie enrolled, and that was after the. It was the Junior Worlds in Italy, Zapata, 2001, and then I moved to Mammoth summer of 2001. And Grenade had not made any product yet. It had been a stencil. Matt and Danny had come up with the company idea. Tim Karpinski famously was at the X Games, I think was it Stowe, Vermont, or Killington, Vermont? I forget.
Mount Snow.
Mount Snow.
That's where it was, yeah.
And that's where Grenade famously had kind of arisen. Tim Karpinski's at the half pipe, shaved head, and basically screaming out. Everyone had been wearing gloves on their hands. Everyone had been trying to figure out like what company to make, and nobody had a glove sponsor. And people wearing socks on their hands, and the name had come up as Grenade Gloves. And Pinsky screaming into the half pipe, "We're gonna make gloves!" And that was pre me. And then it was that summer where Matt Kass had been living out in Mammoth for some time. He was like the leader of that East Coast movement, you know. Mark Riley, you know, had been there. And then on the other East Coast side, you know, from New Jersey was, you know, Danny, Sketchy D, Dave Schiff, and all these people had just started migrating. And the gas station in June Lake was bought, and that's kind of where I came into it. And we it was a company that hadn't really shipped anything yet. And then when it made the first gloves, the gloves were horrible. You wipe your nose, they'd bleed. They had the Karpinskis. The gas station got spray painted out. The riser that was like the riser had been pulled out, and it was a mini ramp. And we were packing boxes, throwing empty beer cans in there and 40s, and shipping God knows what to people. And you know, it kind of took off from there. I think the original team photo at June Lake, there's maybe 30 people in the picture. Hannah Beeman's in the picture. Charlie Marachi's in the picture. Scotty Arnold's in the picture. Colin Langlois, Kyle Clancy.
Let's just give a quick air horn for those names.
Yeah, quick. Just fucking bing, bing, bing. Jeff Kramer. And you know, Bobby George was the local. Jeff Anderson was like really the only local that really took a liking to most people moving. And I lived in the same complex as Jeffy. So we were all in Sierra, and he was my neighbor, and I got to know Jeffy pretty fucking well, man, and he was the one that kind of was like, wow, this is pretty cool what's happening here. Nothing's ever come like this to Mammoth, and the rest of the town hated us. And then I became the official team manager, I think, when I was 16. I think I was 16, and we'd migrated from June Lake. We still had the office there, but we had taken over the building in Mammoth, like behind Domino's, where M6 used to be. And there needed to be a team manager, and I think Clancy was the leader on that, and they had like a bit of a board meeting, and I kind of got given the job. It wasn't a job that paid anything. It was just a job. It was just a job to send shit to people. I don't even know if we had a budget to send stuff to people, and I sure as hell wasn't writing anything down when I was taking it out of the packing order, so a lot of stuff went missing. And I used to overload people. But, like, it was, and I'll never forget it, like, my first office was actually in a bay that had no heating. So in the middle of winter, I had this office upstairs from where all the product was in the warehouse, and there was no heating, and I was just in there just stuffing boxes, putting people's names on it, and shipping it out. I remember Matt come down once, and it was a box of, like, Pat Moore or something. There would have been, like, $3,000 worth of shit in there. Matt's like, the fuck are you doing? Send the box to Pat.
Unreal.
You know, but it was like, you know, and I'd been sleeping on Joe's couch. I was going to school, doing homeschool, and then basically Lane and Danny, who I'd met at Junior Worlds in Italy, and I was basically sleeping on Lane's couch every night and not going home to Joe's. Supposed to be going to homeschool, and I was showing up every other week, basically handing in some work, and then
How old? Just to
I'm 16 at the time. Yeah, when I moved to Mammoth, I was 15, turned 16, so I was 16 at the time, and you know, sleeping on Lane's couch, and then sleeping on Danny's couch, and that was the year Full Metal Edges came out. So we all had mohawks. That was the year we hightailed to Super Park in Breckenridge. There wasn't. I don't even think the grenade bus was a thing yet. I got the original 93, 94 Winnebago tattooed on my leg, but it was just a van at that point. It was a spray painted van that we would all drive around in. And I remember driving to Super Park. There was, I don't know, 8 or 9 of us in the van that had 2 seats. And Oakley, Matty Swanson got us the hotel room that year, and we were all crammed into a room, and that was when I first started announcing things. I got given wasn't even a microphone. I got given a megaphone and just started blurting stuff out at Super Park in 2001. Maybe it was 2002. Yeah, I think we're in 2002 now because the Olympics, I think it happened. And I'm just at Super Park with a beer in the hand and a megaphone in the other hand, just hurling abuse at everybody going by. And it kind of escalated from there, but that's kind of my intro into like Grenade and how I ended up fitting into the picture, you know. Matt and Danny created it, you know. Then there was, you know, Jared Slater, 7.5, I think, % Slater was his name at the time. I think he owned 7.5% on a napkin. I think there was about 6 or 7 other people that had percentages on that time. You know, everyone kind of owned Grenade. Nobody really knew who owned it.
messy paper trail with all those napkins on
You
it.
know?
Hence the reason it couldn't be sold at the end.
We sold it.
Oh, it was sold.
It got sold. Yeah.
did.
Yeah, it just didn't sell for $100 million like we got told. You had all these, you're the next Volcom, or you're next this, or you're next that, or... At the end of the day, man, I think what happened was supposed to happen. It was a moment in time, and you take snowboarding, what it was there in the early 2000s, and I think it was the snowboard needed the snowboard industry needed it. It needed to be thrown upside down, and Danny Kass was just the man to do it. And I'll never forget. This was like way down the road. This was like, fuck, we'd gone through shit. Friends stopped talking to us. People stopped working for us, and it was all these like underlying things that happened or didn't happen. And I remember, you know, sitting in the office in Oregon with Danny and his dad, and he's like, fuck, like, I never wanted any of this, you know. I could have bought a Ferrari. I never wanted to buy a Ferrari. I bought a bus, and took all my friends around. It's crazy the ride that everybody got to go on. If you look at that original list of people, and I look at it now heavily, you know, and it's like fucking Kurt Morgan, Jared Slater, Travis Rice. You're looking at the original like people that are in those original movies. Kyle Clancy, Zach Leach, Hunter Beeman. Ron Clampitt, you just keep going down. And that's a fucking heavy list of people. You know, and all these people went off to have their own careers. And I think Danny helped a lot of people into the industry, you know, in a way of creating a movement that was, you know, bigger than snowboarding or just like what snowboarding needed, you know. And I think snowboarding at that time was hadn't got corporate yet, you know, like the energy drink business wasn't big in there, corporate America, but it was on its way. You know, after the 2002 Olympics, things changed. 2006 come around and things completely fucking changed. But in that like 2000 to 2005 era, it was fucking raw. Snowboarding was raw. We were raw. You know, we were a bunch of just misfit kids, you know, outlaws against society on like, you know, we're snowboarders and we're going to, you know, do it our way. And a lot of people hated us for that. You were either part of the crew or you hated us, you know? And I remember the first year I went to X Games, it was 2001. It must have been 2002 again. I'm fucking weird with my times here, but I think it was 2002. That was the same year of the Olympics that Ross, Danny, JJ podium. I never forget. We rolled up to the Olympics with Bridges in his Honda Civic, and I had a blow up doll. I had this fake leather jacket on. I had spray cans. We had you know, it was just I had the megaphone, and it was just we were at the Olympics, and you know, shit was different. You know, 30,000 people there, and then they went and you know, Danny, Ross, and JJ swept the podium. First American sweep in 52 years. Next thing you know, these guys are, you know, well, that was supposed to be on Good Morning America or something. Ross got a little drunk and they didn't make that interview. They got pulled from that one. But like it was, but they were on the cover of every newspaper, you know, they were huge.
Oh yeah.
You know, they all got nesty deals right off the bat. And then, you know, it just, things changed from there. You could see that there was much more of a movement. And then when like I think the money started rolling in for Danny, rather than getting a big house or buying a fancy car or just, you know, a lot of people, we know a lot of these people in the come up in sport or whatever it is, and they floss for themselves, but they don't give back, right? And I get it. It's totally understandable. I think in society, you're being like taught to like get bigger, make more money, buy a bigger house, get these things, right? Or get more material things that don't mean shit. But like Danny, like really wanted everyone to come along for the ride.
Yeah, he brought his boys with him.
Brought his boys, you know, he brought the crew with him, and it was all about being a part of and letting them be a part of it, you know. Riders not having to stress as much on like, fuck, like, is this sponsor going to pay to put me in the video? You know, yeah, the sponsors were paying for like sponsors. We had grenade sponsors, but there were definitely a lot of riders in there that wouldn't be getting movie parts or getting a couple clips in movies that were all a part of the grenade crew. And again, there were people that were getting sponsorships and getting travel budgets, wouldn't have been getting that anyway. You know, like you can't take out like fucking Travis Rice and these people. Travis Rice was always going to do his own fucking thing, but he was still part of that like original crew. You know, the first time I met Travis was, you know, because I'd done a trip to Steamboat, and Keenan Rice, another guy by Jamie Curcio, Steamboat guys, are the people I've known the longest, you know, and Keenan and Travis were friends because Jackson's close to Steamboat. The first time I ever met Travis was that year I was living in Steamboat, and he comes in, he's got these like cowboy jeans on, tucked in shirt, and like a full cowboy hat, and that was Rice's kit.
Good old boy good old Wyoming boy. Straight up.
That was his kit.
Yeah.
And then the super park that he blew up at, like he came and just fucking knocked doors down in Mammoth Super Park, and he'd signed I think Rosignol back then, but all these people were on their own different trajectories, you know, and it was cool because it's like I look at it now, you know, and you know, speaking of Kurt Morgan, or you look at what he's done or doing, you're just like, holy shit, dude's a maniac, but the dude's a fucking smart motherfucker. You know, Jared Slater, you know, who made the original Grenade movies, like smart guy today still. You know, these guys are working in big movie business stuff. So it's crazy to look back, and not even just the snowboarders, creative people that were involved in like what was going on. And then there was just, you know, a glove company on the side that we were trying to sell gloves.
So I want to pick your brain on this a little bit because, you know, I graduated high school in 2005. So your guys' media juggernaut of Grenade becoming this thing, it was working on me. Like I was your guys' target demographic. I remember I hand cut my own Grenade stencil that was all wonky, and I would spray paint on my board, and I would go around. I didn't even know anybody at Grenade. I would buy Grenade gloves, and like I was fucking down, dude. Like, and I always find myself wondering, like, what made that energy, what made that time period so special? Like, what if you were gonna replicate it? Like, what were the ingredients to making it? And I think, like, you know, to answer my own question, and I want to ask you as well. It's like you have Danny who's winning everything, but he's also bringing along all his boys. But I don't think we've seen like a collective of that much energy towards one thing since then. I don't know if I'm wrong about that, but what do you think made it so, the draw so strong? You know what I mean?
Yeah, it's hard. It's hard to redo things, you know. It's again, it's like a moment in time. It's like Grenade still being around today. It's like if the logo got sold, it's used as a supplement company that you fucking, you know, they sell food like fucking health bars or some shit, you know. It's like what? But like it's a moment in time, and I think snowboarding needed that upset. It was like we were still keeping it core to, like, you know, what the core original snowboarders were doing in the 90s, I feel like. And it was just the last of that, because like big sponsorship, big corporate came in, and if you're a snowboarder like Danny today, you can't live like Danny did back then. Right? And it was like nobody had glove sponsors, you know, so every Burton rider was wearing gloves. Shaun White his name I think was in the first catalog. He had Grenade stickers on his board, you know, and then every Burton rider that was on Grenade was wearing Grenade gloves, until the point to, like, there was a meeting in Burlington, and they fucking all the riders come in, and there's fucking every Grenade glove on the table, and they're like, how do we do this? All right, you guys are all now contracted to wear Burton gloves, you know. We were helping people get paid more money so they didn't wear our shit, you know. And it was like, there was that East Coast movement that then kind of bonded with all these other offset people that kind of came in, and that group, like, it's like even Mammoth now, like I go and hang out in Mammoth, and you're just like, fuck, like, it's not what it was. But like, things change, you know, like, and Mammoth was such a small town. So you put like 60 snowboarders, give or take, there's probably even more, but you put 60 core snowboarders like that, they're going to make noise in a little town, and then when they move and travel, you're making noise everywhere we went. And I think it was authentic, and it was real. And I think that today, in this age, if you make it as a pro snowboarder, and you've got these sponsors, and you've got obligations, and you've got to compete and do these things, you can't live and act like that. You know, where there was no social media, you know, they sure as hell aren't partying like we partied. We used to tear places apart. Like, the cops would come in riot gear just to break up parties, you know, in a tiny little town.
Dude, you guys had everybody wanting to move to Mammoth at the time, you know?
Yeah,
it was like,
Mammoth
oh,
was
fuck.
the spot, right?
You know, I remember going and staying with Lane, and it was like, this is the shit, the pink rails, and,
yeah,
you know, it doesn't have that same energy anymore.
Yeah.
It's unreplicable. You can't replicate that. It's just not going to happen.
You know, and then at the point, it was like a lot of the people that were able to work at the company too, and it ended up being the fall of a lot of it too, you know. But I think about it all the time, and it's like I just think it was a moment in time, and I'm glad that we had that moment in time.
I got a Patreon question from Lane.
Yeah, let's hit it.
It's kind of a 3-part lightning round question. Hopefully this first part is appropriate. Where did the sticker, maybe the dingo ate your lady, come from? I never saw that, but did that exist? I don't know.
Yeah, that existed. That was a sticker floating around the U.S. Open. So we had sticker machines, so we could make quotes and make all these.
I remember those. They were
so
incredible.
We could show up at an event and just screw people over. And the dingo ate lady was at a U.S. Open, maybe like 2007. Something like that. I don't know where it came from.
Somebody whipped it up. I remember the dingo ate your baby in that famous movie back in the day.
Yeah, well, that's a real thing.
Yeah, that's that actually happened, right? It's a true story.
Yeah. They say that, well, she went to jail and they pulled her out of jail. And,
oh, maybe she did something. So his next question was, since you were 15, how many tour buses have you puked on? And also, what is the Australian mind trick?
Oh, this is good. The Australian mind trick is, I used to sneak into bars from the age of 15. I was sneaking into bars since I was 15, and I had my 21st birthday, and people thought I was like 30. Pat Bridges in Shaun White's guest editor issue, basically, in Sean's opening notes, like there was a line where Sean basically said, and Pat set this up, but Sean basically was like, yeah, Dingo's a 34-year-old roadie from Idaho. So then people like, as I'm like 19, 20, people like, you liar, you're a fraud. You're from Idaho. And that's when the magazines ruled the world. There was no social media. There was no, fact checking. It was just like, it said it in the magazine, so it was real. But yeah, man, I was a genius at sneaking into bars. I never had a fake ID. I ended up with Jesse House's fake ID, and I think that got taken off me. But I never had a fake ID, and I never had a problem getting into a bar, which was kind of weird. What was the second one? Tour buses?
Did you used to puke on a lot of tour buses, according to Lane?
Yeah. Yeah, I don't puke on them. I don't puke on them
Anymore?
No, I grew up a little bit. But yeah, I used to throw up a lot. Food poisoning.
Allergic to alcohol.
Cool. Well, to keep it moving, since we got a lot of stuff to cover, well, first let's actually talk a little bit about the fall grenade and some of the details involved with that. If you
I
care
think
to
there's
speak on it.
I think there's a couple parts to it. It's Matt and Danny went separate ways, a little bit, and like the company had grown, and it had been split from. The company had to move out of Mammoth because it had outgrown Mammoth. To ship millions of product in from China and have it driven up to Mammoth and then shipped out is pretty unfeasible. So Oregon ended up being the spot, Portland, where there was a warehouse purchased, and most of the company had been moved up there. Shipping was up there. Matt was running the company at the time. Danny was still in the middle of snowboarding. That was 2005, 2006-ish. And I think the company grew a lot. There was a lot of moving parts, and when you're at the helm, which Matt was at the helm, there's a lot to deal with, and I think there was a little bit of, come unstuck there, and there had been, some issues, maybe some mental issues that had overseen. Anybody that knows, and I know this now more than ever because I've been working since I was a teenager. Dude, you overdo yourself, you go over get in your head, you probably know this too from Tech 9 days. It's fucking tough to run a business. You're in charge of a lot of people. You're in charge of a lot of things. You're in charge of shipping. You're in charge of product. You're in charge of sales. Like it gets technical, and I think maybe Matt just got a bit over his head, and then was able to defer off different things. I remember showing up to the warehouse that should have been full of gloves, and it was full of video games and boats, and there'd been a skate park built in the warehouse. So it's like he was having fun, but it was like. And I just think, there could have been a time when, maybe he had reached out for help. And I'm still really young at this point, I'm like young and naive, and like I'm just there to, I'd always, stuck by Danny and was there just to do my thing. And at that point, Danny's winning the contest. I'm announcing him and I'm blowing a grenade out. I think there was also a lot of the riders hadn't been paid then. No one really got paid in Grenade until after the huge explosion. And then coming out of 2008, 2009, when Dustin Craven, Aaron Niemela, all these guys, we had people on the team that started getting paid. But that was in the 04, 05, 06 era. There are a lot of people that, should have got paid. And just kind of didn't, and it was just a mismanaged business. And then the mismanaged business tallied up on debts, maybe some taxes not being paid, stuff not being shipped to the right places, and it's easily come unstuck, right? And I think for Danny, there weren't loans on banks or anything back then, and Danny was shoveling, a lot of his own money into it, and not really knowing what's going on. At that point, Danny had not put a business hat on and been like, hey, Danny was the guy that was, still getting paid big bucks from Quicksilver and still big bucks Vans and was being Danny Kass. And then would just, all right, here's a check, not even look, right, sign the check, keep it going. And I think there was a hole that happened that was just pretty, you almost couldn't get out of it, And fuck, man, I love both those guys. I love Matt and I love Danny, and it's so hard to see families getting torn apart. But money and business and those things happen, and it was there, it was an interesting time. And the economy crashed in 2008. And when the economy crashed, Grenade had probably had to take a hard look at itself. And there was probably 30, 40 people working there that couldn't really tell you what they did. So it wasn't being run as a real business. And then Matt had actually hired Joseph Condorelli, who came in to be the basically CEO of the boss, and came in and, you know, looked at everything and he was a bit of a bully himself, you know, a New York guy, kind of a hustler, and had kind of come in to help Matt on some stuff. And then I guess like got under the books and, you know, was like, these things are pretty cooked. You know, you couldn't have sold the company back then when it probably should have been. It probably should have been. It could have been dollied up, and, you know, there were Oakley's, there were offers from Oakley, there were offers from Quicksilver. There were offers on the table back then, and, you know, I remember sitting at the table in Mammoth, and when Oakley had got pretty close to buying it, and it was like, what, we're going to sell this thing for $1 million? And then what? You know, like, so we just kind of kept on moving the ship. And
is that what the offer was? Because I always thought it was like stupid.
I
money.
sat
No,
in
that was
meeting,
the first offer.
Oh yeah.
I
You
was
know, that was
personally in
early.
a meeting at Brand Base where my group offered them $1.8 million.
Yeah,
and
yeah.
They turned it down.
Yeah, but the first one came from Oakley. The first company that nearly owned Grenade was Oakley.
And things would have turned out a little different if you guys
They
accepted
would have
it.
made it huge.
Oakley? Jeez, yeah.
You know, I'm still best friends with Jamin and Jim Janad, and it's funny, like, all the years later in 2014, we nearly sold to Jim Janad again. After he was out of Oakley in red, basically Jim had come up with a technology for the gloves to, like, not take your gloves off and use the phone, you know? So Jamin, the son, comes and picks me up. These dudes have sold Oakley however long ago, collected a couple $2 billion. They created Red Camera. That company's worth a couple $2 billion. And Jamin and Jim had brought us to. Jim was a huge drag race fan, so we get taken to a drag race event with him. We spend 2 days with Jim Janad on his bus, smoking cigars and talking about the product and talking about how we can do it. And Jim and Jamin were in. The technology, they couldn't just get the technology right. So it was like, we're just not going to do it again. So that was 2014 again, and that would have been another crazy offer. Mm-hmm. You know what I mean? And it's you kind of sit on it, but like to go back to it, it was in 2008, everything had kind of fallen apart. People were pissed. The original core people kind of hadn't been paid for doing small things, understandably. There was a bunch of people working at the company that probably didn't know what they were doing. And then there was a warehouse full of video games that should have been full of product. There was real estate kind of all over the place, California, Mammoth, and it was just a hot mess. You know, China probably hadn't been paid its taxes. There was just things that were kind of all over the place, and it had to get buttoned up. And you know, a lot of people lost their jobs, and I remember that. That hurt me, dude. That hurt me. It hurt Danny, you know, because I felt like I personally hadn't, you know, done anything wrong. I don't think Danny had personally at that time done anything wrong. He just didn't really know. He wasn't at the helm, you know, and people are quick to forget of, you know, the person and how giving he is. And it was just one of those like weird times, man. And like end of 2008 when I ended up in a huge depression, man. I couldn't deal with it. You know, because at that time, too, we had the TV show about to come out. The TV show had hit. And then the company, we were filming second season of the show when the economy crashed. You know, and if we didn't have that TV show, the company probably could have folded, too. You know, it could have happened so quickly. But I would, like, you know, spent, you know, the last 6 years or whatnot. And everything that happened my way, you know, from coming to America, snowboarding going the way that did, or ending up in the group that I did, and then ending up announcing and being, you know, one of snowboarders, you know, biggest announcers at that time. You know, I hosted the U.S. Open when I was 17, you know, and I was dealing with like pressure stuff, but not really understanding it, just doing it. And then when 2008 and the economy crashed, and we had all these problems with Grenade, and we had this show and all these things, and I just tapped out. You know, I had old people that I thought were my best friends that, like, wouldn't talk to me. And I was like, fuck, like, that sucks. And Danny was dealing with his own stuff mentally. And, dude, like, I felt deeply sick. And in 2008, it was like every day I'd wake up and think, is this the day? And then I'd go to bed at night, like, all right, one more night. And I thought about committing suicide almost every single day for a year until I got home one day and one night and, you know, ate everything in the cabinet. Fucking done. On the floor, chick finds me, black tar, throw up everywhere, and then I wake up in the hospital and I'm like,
Every pill in the cabinet?
everything gone. And I wake up in the hospital and I'm just like, fuck, still here. And that's when, like, the real work begins. Because you're like, you've gone in a headspace which you've tried to hide it, and you've been so good at hiding it. I got really big. You know, that always happens. I'm like a sad eater, but that was like the only really way you could tell that I was sick. I would go about every single day, like, all right, go out and do my job, film this, do that, show up at a sale, like a trade show, and then every night just like, fuck, I don't want to be here. I remember being like hotel in Vegas and just being like, fuck, I wish this window was gone and I could just. And it was fuck, man. It was a hard road to come back, and like 2009 was probably the hardest year of my life of me trying to like figure everything back out and trying to keep the ship moving, you know. And we just got lucky on the fact that we had a show, and at the time there was, you know, the company was able to come back, and we started doing bigger numbers in like 2010 and 11 than we were in 04, 05. People don't remember the company was big, but the company wasn't shipping like crazy numbers back then. It was doing like 6, 7, million in sales. When we came back out of it, it was fuck. It was big, but man, it was like, I don't know, dude. I just like I was probably still a teenager at heart and hadn't grown up. There was no one telling me mentally how I should deal with this. There was no one telling me how to deal with my finances. There was no one telling me how to deal with my professional life. There was no one telling me anything. I had no guidance, and I think Danny was a little bit the same way, but he was still focusing on doing what he had to do, and we're just, at the end of the day, we've always been lucky, and still today, we still have each other. But I remember those times of like, man, everyone hates me. And I was like, I got on the Transport Awards. I think it was that year, 2000. It was before I had like fallen sick. I got on stage and the whole room booed me. And I was like, that's crazy. Your peers, everyone hates you. I was like, I think I'm a nice guy.
Absolutely. I can vouch for
crazy.
that. I think that's
I didn't know that happened.
That's going back. I hear a bunch of stuff there, and I it's almost common with people that sit in that chair, that have battled, depression or suicidal thoughts or whatever it is. I think as humans, we all inherently have struggles. It's just how it is. But it's funny because when you see somebody like yourself who's like, yeah, at the time you have your own TV show and you're announcing all these contests and you have fame and you're getting paid, and people look at that person and say, oh, he doesn't have the same problems I do, and I think that sometimes people aren't ready for that fame and that money, and it's just, I just applaud you for bringing that up, because there's people listening to this that are probably struggling, thinking they're the only one going through it, so it's good to talk about.
Yeah, it means a lot to me now, and it took me a long time to be able to like be proud of those struggles, be proud of like what you went through. Shit, that took me years to overcome that. Years to be able to stand up and say that. And also, I'm not going to lie, like in the middle of that, I fell into a party phase. I'm in Los Angeles. I'm hanging out with other people too while all this stuff's kind of happening. And I'm sure people are like, oh, fuck that dude. You know what I mean? Like, it's easy. I'll never forget Mark Frank Montoya. Love the guy, and he was, one of only very few people that like, rather than being enthralled by it or talking shit about it, would pull me aside and just say, hey, man, where you're at right now, there's two ways. You can either open a door and go down a hole and you never be seen again, or you can open a door and you can make something of yourself. I remember being like, I looked up to Mark Frank. I like had, when I'd done the MTV Made episode in 2006, I lived at the Hotel Le Bloc in Tahoe, and style guy, always looked up to that guy, you know what I mean? So it was like, I listened to that. Nobody else had ever really given me advice. Sal Masakela gave me advice, lots of advice in the early days, and like, but there were very few people that like had really given me like good advice like that, and even to go back, like, if it wasn't for Pat Bridges, I definitely wouldn't be who I am today, or I wouldn't have had the career I had, and Pat being able to like in those early days be able to like kind of like spot it. He's very good at spotting talent or like finding a place for somebody, and he said at that time, not everyone can be a pro snowboarder, but you have this talent. And it was the Waterville World Quarterpipe Championships that Travis won.
Legendary event.
That was like the first real event I announced, and apart from that Super Park, which I had a megaphone I think I maybe had a megaphone there, but that led me to announcing the Grand Prix series, which then led me to host the U.S. Open, and I ended up hosting the U.S. Open. They brought me in to host the Rail Jam. I was hosting a lot of Rail Jams back then. It was a Rail Jam. I was there.
That was a Rail Jam era.
Yeah, it was the Rail Jam era. People were making cash at Rail Jams.
Eddie Wall, MFM,
Lucas.
Goon, it was and I was kind of on that circuit, but they brought me in to do the Rail Jam, and then they had me host the entire weekend, and then I hosted the U.S. Open for 5 or 6 years or something like that, and also too, I fucked up on some stuff there. I got, a little in my head, I'm a little, and I'd show up late for work. I'd be out partying, or some of the Grand Prix, I just kind of would show up a day late. And this is shit that I wish that if I go back in time, I would do things a little differently. But there was no one giving me real advice, at that point. So it's I started, one of the biggest regrets I have is that I never announced the Olympics, and I was supposed to announce the Olympics in 2006. I'd announced all the pre-qualifiers, done everything kind of right, and then it just got handed to Duncan and more people that be around and more professional. And I think that kind of that hurt me a little bit, but rather than sticking it out, I was I kind of treated that brand wrong. And I wish I never treated them wrong. And there's things that I would have, and even the last US Open I hosted, I was a mess. I wasn't sleeping. I was out raging, and they knew it. They just didn't hire me the next year. So the last year I showed up there, we were filming the TV show, and I was just there hanging out with Danny, and that was the last time Danny won the US Open. But they didn't hire me because I was a mess. And it was it was apparent.
And they knew it.
They knew it.
Hear it in your voice. And
you all of a sudden don't have a voice on day 2.
You know what I mean? They're here Dingo's been at some house for 2 days, and they're trying to find me to bring me to work. That's fucked up.
Well, I want to.
You could admit that, right? Look at it.
Hearing that, this is something I was excited to ask, knowing you're coming on the show, and you look at, most people are, they want to set a career, and they're like, okay, I want to be a pro snowboarder, or I want to do this, or I want to do that, and for you, you've made a career kind of being you. You don't even have a fucking real job title. It's what are you? There's no. It's he's the Dingo. I mean, what the fuck? He does announces stuff, and he's a celebrity. He's a personality, and he gets paid to go to fucking NASCAR events. And I guess, it's a rare quality these days where somebody is authentically themselves. And, do you have any type of I'm just kind of fascinated in how you found your lane. And do you have advice for people finding their lane and being themselves and shit like that?
Man, it's kind of funny because I think all I ever wanted to be was be a pro snowboarder, Mm-hmm. And then that didn't happen in the way I wanted it to happen. So all these other things happened. I didn't want to go home and stop building houses because that's what I was going to have to do, and when the microphone got handed to me, I was still a teenager. And I just would utilize that power. That power ended up getting me paid. I made a career out of that. And then, the Jackass thing was big, and we'd been linked in with Tremaine and those guys. And I was like, fuck, I want a TV show. And with what me and Danny had going on. And I don't know, I just kind of stepped from one thing to the next. And, I remember, ended up in L.A. being all right, here's another big fishbowl. How do we, conquer this fishbowl, And I, again, right place, right room, meet Rob Dyrdek around 2007, and Rob and Big had just taken off. He'd put me on the original Rob and Big episodes. And so I was learning from people that were doing it at the highest level. And I was all right, I think I understand this. And I think I know how I can take this and pitch that. And that's where the Danny and Dingo pitch kind of came from. And, and I was telling you earlier, it's weird that it took me a long time to realize just to wake up and be you is going to take you very far, right? Here I am surrounded by Danny Kass, Rob Dyrdek, Kerry Hart, Selmas Kaler, all these people, right? And you're all right, I wanted to be them in all different facets, but waking up in the morning and trying to be Rob Dyrdek, you can't do that. You can take his trait or his quality, and I think that's also what fucked me up in my head too. Because while everything was going on, I was still trying to figure out my own identity, and trying to find your own identity is one of the hardest things to do. But you got to look in the mirror and say I love you, and that's a fucking hard thing to do, And looking in the mirror and saying I love you means you love yourself, which means you're proud of yourself. And in all of that, I was still not proud of myself. It wasn't until I commit suicide or to try to commit suicide, fucking that I'd gone through all this shit and like still come out of it, and I still didn't know who I was, you know. And then it took me so long to like wake up and understand that. And it's just it's so important to be you, you know, and to be proud of who you are. And it's tough. It's harder. It's easier said than done, but it's I truly believe that.
What's the turning point in your depression that got you out the other side?
Man, so I met a guy named Mike Smith who's now one of my partners in Find Your Grind, which is a self-discovery platform we have that help young kids find career paths and jobs in the 21st century. And that's what I've spent the last 4 or 5 years building with Nick Gross and Natasha. And it was, I showed up at a golf tournament, Sheckler's golf tournament. I forget what year it was, but Ryan's mom, Gretchen, was like, I want you to meet this guy. And Mike had won a competition or video thing and then been flown out to be a part of Ryan's celebrity golf tournament. So I meet Mike and Gretchen's like, he's a public speaker. He speaks in high schools and has, an amazing platform. And I'd actually originally like gone to like see him speak at a school in Huntington Beach. And I had a friend of mine, Josh Wood, that I'd watched break his back snowboarding when we were kids. And he had this miraculous story. He'd built this jump across the road gap, didn't make the gap, broke his neck, but was said he'd be a quadriplegic for the rest of his life. He ended up being able to walk. His body's fucked up, but he could never walk a normal job. But insurance kind of like they give him he didn't get paid out. Family lost millions of dollars, and I wanted him to be able to tell his story. So I was trying to understand how like speakers speak, and I'd really gone to meet Mike to try and link him in with Josh, which I did. Josh had come over. Josh had a book come out. We promoted it on the Jason Ellis show on Sirius XM, and he'd done done some things over here. But I went to this high school, and I saw Mike speak for the first time, and he made the uncool kids cool and the cool kids uncool, and they were 11th and 12th graders, and I was like, whoa, how the fuck did you do that? The next thing you know, I'm on a plane to Lincoln, Nebraska, a place I'd never heard of, barely knew where Nebraska was. And he's got a 30,000 square foot warehouse out there called the Bay. And I'm like, I don't know how you do it or what you're doing, but I'm here to help. And at the time, he was going like backpack to backpack, school to school, basically showing up and then speaking. And he was like doing 350 dates a year, and there's only like 250 school days a year. He was doubling down. I'm like literally flying all over the country. And I was just amazed at how he was able to give kids hope, and for me, I had this story to tell that I'd wanted to tell. The TV show had been ended. I'd taken a year off. I lived in Malibu for it was a year and a half, and took time to myself. And it was like, what do you want to do? And there were all these other things that were kind of coming at me. I'd been talking with Jeff Tremaine. I ended up shooting like a couple shows at MTV that kind of just never came to air. But while that was happening, I was for the first time in my life since I was a teenager, what do you want to do in life? And the next thing you know, I was able to start telling my story to kids about my depression. At the time, I was on MTV's Ridiculousness. So I could literally walk into any school in 2010, 2011. Every kid knew who I was. Holy shit, that's Dingo. And then I'd sit there and I'd tell a story about my depression and how I overcome it and would tell my story. And I feel like being able to save one kid's life for me was all I wanted to do, help out. And here I am talking to these kids, talking to kids that are being suicidal, talking to kids that are trying to commit suicide, talking to dark kids, And at the end of the day, everyone just wants to be heard. And knowing that, I went through the same thing that I was too embarrassed to talk to my family about it. I was too embarrassed to talk to my friends about it. I was too embarrassed to talk to my peers about it. I was too embarrassed to talk about my situation, which ended up leading me to almost not be here. So for me to be able to stand up or have a conversation with a kid and listen to their story, it was like therapy, and then that kind of grew and helping kids out. And then just the snowball effect of, where Find Your Grind came from and where I wanted to go. And I remember my friends being like, what are you doing in middle America? I was like, I don't know, but I enjoy it.
Man, that's super badass.
Yeah.
That's Find Your Grind for the listeners if you're unfamiliar. A couple things I wanted to bookmark there. What I hear when you're talking about that, it's like you kind of found your purpose, right? And then to rewind back to what you were saying earlier about the self-love stuff, if anybody's looking for some actionable advice, there's a great book called Love Yourself Like Your Life Depends on It. Super easy read, but it's along those lines of what you're talking about. And yeah, I mean, just that Find Your Grind is killer. Thank you for doing that and getting the kids on the right trajectory and talking about it. And another footnote is like, if you're feeling a certain type of way, fucking talk about it. It's 2021. People don't give a shit. It's not like people think everybody's, oh, if I say something, it's going to be a big deal. And it's like fucking chances are the guy sitting next to you is going through the same shit too. So just fucking talk about it.
Especially in 2021, right?
Yeah.
Everyone's more depressed than ever. We'll link your website as well. I was on there last night. It's amazing.
Cool.
Just the stories on there and
Yeah.
well done.
Yeah,
man.
no,
Job well done.
Appreciate that, and it's an ever growing thing. You know, before COVID, we had a huge partnership with Amazon, and we were doing 20, 30,000 kid festivals at CU Boulder and USC, and it's a bummer that's on hold, but it'll come back, and we're our new app's in beta, and the new app's going to be like the website, but 10,000 minutes of exercises and careers linked, and it's assessments, and it's just your journey will be different than my journey. Your journey will be different. Everyone will have their own journey, and basically at the end of it, it will show you your skill sets, and then what careers are best suited for you, and what degree you need or don't need. And
it looks like you're finding them cool careers too, like along the action sports and what if this guy's good at art and creative, maybe he's a clothing designer. This guy's good at talking to people. We'll get him out talking to people and find their lane. That's awesome.
Well, that's it. If I'm telling people to be doctors and lawyers, then the people aren't going to buy it, right?
Totally. Play to your strong suits.
Well, no one told all of us that when we were young, right?
I know, right?
We just had to go move somewhere and make friends and hope for the best.
Yeah.
Well, so to move things along, as your career, your newfound career is developing, and you are kind of getting into this announcing world and this personality world, we on the show have a breakout moment, which is presented by Pub Beer. So let's get into that.
Let's get into our breakout moment presented by our friends over at 10 Barrel and Pub Beer. Pub Beer supports us, and you should support them. Their tagline is cheap, fun beer. Now, before the announcing and the snowboarding became a big, serious career, back when it was cheap and fun, do you have a memorable breakout moment for us?
Memorable breakout moment. In my snowboarding back in the early days?
Let's go more maybe announcing, because I feel like that's where you found your path. Like you're
100%.
Yeah.
It would just have to be like one of the U.S. Grand Prix with like Mark Sullivan. Mark Sullivan kind of like helped me kind of along my way there, kind of, sit in the booth, and he kind of showed me how it was done. And I just remember being able to like do a full day of qualifying and a full day of finals. And I think it was maybe like the Grand Prix in Mammoth in like 2003, and I remember hosting my first like full day of finals and, having Sullivan and Bridges and those guys behind me. But I'd say that was my breakout moment of like hosting the finals of the Grand Prix, in like 2003.
And knowing you could make a career with it, huh?
Being told I could.
Yeah.
I didn't know how it was going to work.
But they were like, you're good at this.
Yeah, everyone just told me it would be good.
Beautiful. I think it might be time to get into some hot takes.
Woo! Yeah, people are liking the hot takes.
First hot take, who is the MJ of snowboarding?
MJ of snowboarding? Like, that's the king? Is he the king? Is MJ still the king?
Michael Jordan.
I mean, he's Michael Jordan, man. But I mean, fucking, he's the king. Yeah.
All right. Michael Jordan of snowboarding. Man, it's like, I guess it's Terrier.
Common answer.
That's
Is that
the
a
answer.
comment?
That's
Is
the
it-
answer I like to throw out.
common
It
answer.
depends like where you're from and what your generation is.
You
and all that.
it's like, I got to like go pre-me, and then I got to like, Travis Rice for me, he's got to be in there because I don't think people are going to do what he did on a snowboarder. Like, I don't think we're going to see that again.
Yeah.
I could be wrong. It could happen, but I don't think we're going to see that for a long time.
Yeah, I agree.
Okay. What would you say the worst trend in snowboarding is?
Well, I tried to say the saggy pant thing, but it's like you guys are still doing it.
I'm still sagging.
I'm still sagging.
That's okay. It can still be a bad trend. It's all,
I don't want to upset Lane.
Lane still rocks a fat sag.
Yeah.
Lane Knack. Let's give him a quick air horn.
He does.
Okay, what's your take on the beaver slap in the lift line when you got your snowboard on and you kind of give it that whack, you know?
I love a good slap.
Yeah?
Yeah.
You hit a slap
Don't
out there?
you?
Oh, yeah.
I love a good slapperoonie.
Dude, we got sent a video last night of like 10 people beaver slapping and just at the bomb hole. I was so stoked.
Well, beaver slap all day.
Perfect. You know, I kind of want to tell a quick story
Okay.
of why I fuck with the Dingo. And we may have touched on it in Zach Hale's episode, but we were in, Annecy, France.
Yeah.
And there's a film festival out there called The Reels, and I think Monster was a big sponsor of it, and you were announcing all the stuff, and me and Hale, I ended up getting blacked out drunk and was in this VIP area where I shouldn't have been, and basically there's a guy's trying to like fuck with me. They were like pushing me around. Hale came, had my back, ripped his shirt off, got in a fight, bouncer grabbed him, choked him out, dragged him down the stairs, threw him down the stairs, punched him in the face, maced him. I got dragged down the stairs. It's a little blurry, but I remember you took care of me and fucking Zach Hale that night, and I didn't even really know you. And ever since then, I've been like, Dingo is the fucking shit, dude.
Yeah, I've been around. I've seen that stuff my whole life. You know what I mean? And that bar club we were at, it was sketchy, man. And it's like, especially in France and when, just be anywhere you're international, man, you got to be careful. And I saw that coming all night. You know what I mean? And I've been on the other end of it. I've been beaten up by security guards. I've been hauled down. I've had the crap kicked out of me. I've been thrown into weird rooms, you know, because I've been in a situation to where I thought, what's happened to you guys? But those guys were going to take advantage of you. Those guys are going to fuck you up. And like, I just been there too many times. My brother, you know, coming from, you know, I've seen it. And that's exactly what my brother would have done. And for you guys, like, I ain't gonna let people, you know, take advantage of kids like that.
God damn it, love hearing that.
I think it's easy when you're overseas too to get too comfortable, and those guys will really try to take advantage of you. So good on you.
Well, this is a perfect time for our guest question, which is presented by Solomon Snowboards. I ride the Solomon District bindings. You know, personally for me, they're my favorite bindings. I put them on every single board I ride. That's the only bindings I asked for from Solomon. So if you're looking for a binding, get yourself to Solomon Districts. With that, we're going to get into the guest question from none other than Lucas Magoon.
Grenier and Stony Buds, what's good, bomb hole? Once again, I hear you got Luke Nathan Trembath in the building tonight. What's good, Dingo? Well, got a couple questions for you. How old was I when I started using your driver's license to get to the after parties until I was 21? Also, are we going to see back-to-back sevens this year for the Goon Gear short film?
Man, I haven't done a 720 in probably 9 years.
It's a tall order.
That's a tall order. Man, I can do a 720 in right here.
Yeah.
Spinny chair.
In the spinny chair.
How old was he? I don't know. He must have been like 16 or something.
I'd say that's probably about right.
Right?
You were announcing all those contests when you won like 6 figures.
Yeah, he was winning a lot of money.
And you were hyping him up on the mic.
Yeah, I was a good hype man.
It's a great era.
Man, I used to like, fun fact, I don't know a fun fact, but like I used to get migraines every time I announced. So like by the time I was like doing finals or having to give awards away, I'd had this like crazy migraine. Every contest.
Just
ever.
from going so ham on the mic
Yeah.
or what?
Yeah, I'd never
Giving it your all.
I never learned how to use my voice.
Wild shit.
Isn't that crazy?
That
The
is
gnarliest migraines.
Probably just not drinking enough water out there. Drinking.
Yeah.
While we're on the guest questions, I got another quality guest question presented by Solomon from none other than Louis Vito. Here we go.
What up? This is Louis Vito. I got a question for Dingo. Dingo, which vehicle is better for smashing snowballs on the way up to Big Bear? A Magnum or a Suburban? And can you tell me a little bit about that matte black Suburban? Thank you.
Yeah. One of the dumbest things I ever did, I had a Dodge Magnum. Sick Dodge Magnum for a while. Hannah Beeman, shout out. She had the first one, I think. The old Hemi. And me and Louie were on our way up to Big Bear. And I saw what I thought was like a huge snowball. Like, you know, and they roll off the mountain and they roll on the side and they're on the road. So I'm like, oh, I'm going to line this thing up and just explode it. I lined the thing up and it disintegrated my rim. We were going pretty fast too. Coming into a corner and just lined that thing up and
It was a rock.
slid. It was a gigantic boulder.
And that road is windy and sketchy.
Yeah,
and
Kyle
loose.
lived in Big Bear for a while.
And so
That Dodge lived a lot of places. It was in Reno for like 8 months or something out the front of Bob Klein's house. And then it got moved to L.A. where it like sat in L.A. and like rotted out. I got a phone call because it was sitting out the place in Los Angeles. And it was on. It had been on the road too long or something. So somebody that was at the house was like, "Oh, we went outside and your car's on the tow thing." I said, "Get it off." The tow driver says that once it's on, it doesn't come off.
That's the word.
So then I don't know where I was, and then it ended up in a Hollywood fucking lot somewhere. I had to pay thousands of dollars for it to come out. And the reason why that car had been left so many places is because the matte black Tahoe was the original Rob and Big Tahoe. So when Rob and Big ended, Derek at the time was just like kind of, him and Big had that falling out, and he was starting Fantasy Factory, was doing his own thing. Me and Rob were neighbors at that time, and Rob had kind of become like, he was an idol, but it also had become kind of like a mentor to me, you know, and he basically said, you know, I was like, well, what are you doing with that truck? He's like, well, you know, let me see how much I still owe on it, and then whatever I owe on it, you just pay that. And MTV had paid for the whole dolly up. It was like the first real matte black painted car, like painted. Under the trims, the whole thing was matte blacked out. The rims were gnarly, the windows were super gnarly done. The whole thing had been tricked out for the TV show. And he owed $26,000. So we paid it for it, $26,000 in ones. We went to like 4 different banks and cleaned out all the banks. We went to one Bank of America down the road from the Laurel Canyon house and took $13,000. We cleared the bank out of it once and had to go to a bunch of different other banks. So we got $26,000 in ones and then dropped a huge duffel bag of ones at Rob's house and fucking, we made it rain.
That's awesome.
God damn it, that's incredible.
Let's talk about the Ikon Season Pass.
They are launching their new season passes for the 21-22 season. Own the season, own the stories, own the stoke. Now, there are more than 40 unique Ikon Pass destinations. One of my favorites being Brighton Resort.
One of my favorites also, Snowbird.
With exclusive spring savings, including special pricing for the 2021 pass holder renewals, savings on passes for kids, and a new payment plan for how much, buds?
$0 down and 0% APR.
Right now, take advantage of limited springtime pricing, including the Ikon Pass. For how much, buds?
$999 is the adult price.
That unlocks the most days, the most mountains, and, super important, no blackout dates. They also have the Ikon Base Pass. For how much, buds?
$729 for adults.
That opens up a season of adventure with limited blackout dates. And lastly, they have the Ikon Pass 4-day. How much is that, buds?
The adult price is only $399.
That allows you to kickstart your ride. Also, you get credits in the event of a COVID-19 closure with the option to defer the value of an unused pass, no questions asked. Every moment spent in the mountains is a new opportunity for discovery and connection because as the mountains connect us, these unique communities are what hold us together. Here at the Bomb Hole, we deeply care about communities, huh, buds?
Community is all we got.
Own the season, own the stories, own the stoke. Discover pass options and claim your moments in the mountains at iconpass.com. Okay, Dingo. One thing I want to talk about that I'm sure most people know that are listening, maybe they don't, is that you were on Jason Ellis's show on Sirius for 12 years.
Yeah.
A, how did that come about? B, what did you learn from being on the air that long?
Yeah, so you're going to laugh at this one, boys. I grew up snowboarding with his younger brother, Stevie, who passed away. R.I.P. Stevie. But Stevie used to be on the Junior Worlds team with me. And it's crazy because you always talk about his brother, Jason Ellis, who growing up as a kid, like, he'd made it, you know? He's in America, vert skater, Tony Hawk, like fucking Jason Ellis. So the first time I meet Jason, and Jason don't even remember this, it was the Red Bull House at X Games in 2001. or two, and he was he was there. He was passed out on the floor with like two girls passed out on the floor, face down, a leather jacket. That was the first time I saw him, but I never, he was passed out. He was, and then the first time we met, he had me come on the radio show at the 2008 X Games. And I was a guest, and then basically they brought me in like the end of that year as like a one-off guest, like a recurring guest, and then I became basically a permanent fixture on the show by like 2009, and when that had happened, the show was still grassroots. It was on Faction, which was the punk channel, Channel 41. And it wasn't even supposed to be a real show. Like, he started out as a VJ. He got hired as a VJ. Sirius XM had just started growing, and they got Tony Hawk to have his own show, like an hour show. And the executives were at the X Games, and Jason's hiking up the mega ramp, cussing, pissed off. They're like, "Who's that guy?" And he's like, "Oh, it's Jason. This guy's got some light to him. Like, let's put him on as a VJ." So basically, co-signed by Tony Hawk, Jason got a job VJing at Faction, which then slowly grew into, a talk show where he got a guy named Mike Tully, who was from New York, media background, another guy, Kevin Kraft, who had worked under Howard Stern, and it was kind of slowly becoming the next Howard Stern, and he had then been put on Howard Stern, and that's when the show had already was big, had a big core audience, and like we were just talking about, there are, lots of people out there that need to hear real facts about life. And Jason had always been open. He's like an open book, about everything in his life, even to the point about opening up and coming out and, telling everybody he's, bisexual and the core. I remember jumping in the car one day, and for me, like, I grown up around that, and I have a lot of gay friends from just previous relationships and whatnot, and when he had come out and basically told me he was going to do it and come out on air and basically, and there are a lot of his friends in the background that like almost shamed him for it. So, like, I just, had stuck by a burly man who's covered in tats, who's a skater, MMA fighter, the last guy you would think, and here he is blurting out and, telling people his secrets or just being open. And I think the reason why Jason's show's been so successful and that there's so many core audiences there is because he lets everyone tell their story, and everybody's... nobody's excluded, you know what I mean? And Jason was very good at telling the shit that happened in his life, whether that mean the stuff that happened with, his father and then as a kid, and like shit that was like fucking gnarly stuff for people to talk about, but Jason's on the radio being honest about how this happened and how he ended up this way, and how this fucked up part of his life has now made him who he is. And again, there's a lot of people out there that need to hear that, and he built this core audience of people that felt like they listened to him and felt like they had a place. And then it grew. The show was, one of the number one talk shows on Sirius XM for long time. Like, a couple million listeners a day at some point. And it was, he's kind of like, he's like my brother, and I was able to co-host and sit next to him. And, when I started with him, we were in a tiny little shithole shoebox, and by the time, I ended there, we were in a multi-million-dollar studio in Sirius XM with like, the biggest, the most famous people in the world walking by the studio, coming in, interviewing him. It's like, got to interview, Chelsea Handler, Ozzy Osbourne. It's like the people coming in there, you're like, oh, this is different,
So what in that, 5 days a week, sitting in that shared live show, that much time on air, like, what did you learn? You learn whatever you say, make sure you can back it up.
Okay. A lot of people call you out or what?
Yeah. Don't ever.
I always got Bridges calling us out on this show.
Yeah.
Whether it's a guest or us.
I'm sure people will call me out, but the thing is, like, whatever you say, make sure you can back it up because you get called out real quick. Don't ever do drunk radio. I learned
that's a bad move.
Yeah, I learned that real quick too. you know. So it's you got to be on point. It's you got to be sharp. But like for us, it's like we kind of had a science. It's like I never overly took it too seriously. Again, even like when I was, in the Danny and Dingo days, like the TV show, like Danny's, two-time Olympic silver medalist, however many X Games medals, U.S. Open, how many U.S. Open champions? Like he's the snowboard guy, and then I was the punching line. You know what I mean? I knew my role. You got a TV show, you want to entertain people, you want to make people laugh. Same as the radio. Jason drives the ship. I kind of find my moments, jump in, jump out, kind of like yourself, and it's like you find your moments to be funny, you find your moments to stand out, you find your moments to say what you want to say, and then you kind of get out. Don't make it too much about yourself. You got to really like let it be about whoever it is. But also it's like, you've got some days you'd have guests, some of the biggest fucking stars in the world, and some days they're not. Some days you're just, telling dick jokes and making people laugh, and I think we were good at that.
Absolutely. Yeah, one of the highlights of this show particularly was Easton mentioned that he touched a horse's penis, and it was one of the softest things he's ever touched in his life.
Softest material. And I still swear by that.
Yeah.
But going back to what you're talking about.
It's a funny story. I think at one point we had a horse's penis, a dead horse's penis, shipped to the studio. So yeah, going down the same road,
it's something that
I didn't touch it. I looked at it.
You can't verify the softness level.
Who'd you ship the horse's penis to?
I think it got shipped to the studio.
Shipped to the studio.
Yeah, standards and practice didn't really pick up on us until we got into the big studio. And then what standards and practice is like, you can't do this, you can't do that. It kind of took the fun out. But some of the weirdest things I've ever seen in my life, I've seen in that booth.
I bet.
Yeah.
You guys ever heard of the fish called a sea robin in the East Coast?
Unfamiliar.
Dude, they're crazy. And I explained what they were to my buddy Travis Wood, and they're like this goblin-looking fish that has wings and arms and this crazy mouth. Told it to Travis, he never believed me, and one day I caught one and shipped it to him on dry ice, and he about freaked out. When I'll make sure we cue one up in the photos. They're the craziest-looking fish you've ever seen.
There it is. That's beautiful. Going back to what we're talking about being in the booth, this is kind of a personal thing with us, but one thing that is cool, because we have a lot of guests come in, and a lot of, especially the younger guests, they're very self-conscious about what they say and how they sound. And the more, you've had so much time behind a microphone, you realize at a certain point in time, nobody gives a shit.
Nah.
Right? Did you ever experience that?
Yeah, so it's like, once I was being paid to be a radio show, you don't realize you're a radio show host, you're like, shit, there's a check shows up in the mail. Guess I'm a radio show host. From one of the biggest companies in media. You're like, you see the thing on the bottom, Scott Greenstein, CEO of fucking Sirius XM. I don't think he knows who I am, but he signs the checks. I started listening to Howard Stern, but I never listened to talk radio before. So then I started to study talk radio, and I quickly realized that, again, dude, don't study it. Don't do what he did. You got to be you. So I had these moments where it was also tough, like, because I was filming the TV show at the same time, and for the TV show, we'd go out and do what we do, and then we'd have to do these recaps, and we'd do these recaps where we'd do it afterwards. We'd go rent a house somewhere and spend like a week and recap the entire season, and it was fucking dreadful because you got to sit there in a chair for hours just recapping, and you basically get so drained. But because I was in the middle of this, all right, I'm a radio show host, but I'm like kind of comic guy, and then I'm a storyteller guy on another side, and the stories are told in two different ways, and the producer of the show would be like, dang, you're back in radio mode, we need you back in TV, like, and I was overthinking things, and by like listening to other talk radio, I was like trying to imitate what they were doing again, where I was like, dude, stop listening to all radio, just go on the radio and be you, because people are laughing at you because you're you. Not because you're trying to be professional. Like, they would always yell at me. I'd always cut over people. Like, the professionals would be talking and whatnot, and I'm like, fucking dick joke, And they're like, we were just talking about the weather. But people thought that's funny, And that was just kind of, and again, I was just being me. You know what I mean? That's me just being me. If I'm sitting there and, I'm going to, wait perfectly till he stops, and then I'm going to leave my time, and then I'm going to say what I say. It's just like, it's not me. So I think it was just, again, just be yourself.
And Howard Stern's, man, he got popular by being himself. He was the first dude to get all sexually innuendo wild and do his own thing. And you can't just mimic that guy.
No.
He took his own path.
Well, I think this brings us to a certain part of the show. You know what part of the show that is, Dingo?
I think I do. Or do you?
Easton knows what it is.
No, go drop it.
Name that video part.
Yeah, we're in it.
Where are we going with this?
What's your confidence level 0 through 10?
On snowboard videos?
Yes.
Around 2000 to 2006, I'm probably at about a 6.
Okay.
That's good. That's a lot of our guests come in with like a 2 or a 0.5.
A lot of times we
Shit, I hope I didn't overdo myself. Hopefully you give me a grenade move.
I like the confidence.
Shit.
Okay, here we go.
It's nervous. Full Metal Edges.
That's correct.
Ryder.
Carl Clancy.
Holy
Wow.
smokes, that is correct. You know what you get yourself? Dingo. Good job,
That was
dude.
good, dude.
You get yourself a bomb hole cooler
Yep.
filled with bomb hole merch. We got a
Sick.
coffee mug, stickers. I think I got a hoodie in there. You got to press the button on top to open it. there.
Child lock on this thing?
Yeah, it's crammed to the brim. So
Here it is.
All of the goods are available at
Oh, sick.
bombhole.com. If you're looking, we got a bomb hole hat, hoodie, stickers,
Sick.
all that good stuff.
I get the idea that you don't really watch the show because you didn't know what segment we were about to drop on you.
No, I know.
He's never even seen the show.
Put him on blast. I mean, he does it. You got to give him
He's a
some
busy
slack.
guy, dude. I believe it.
Okay, so for part 2 and name that video part, this is for the listener viewers. If you know it, comment on the photo of Dingo on Instagram.
Not for you.
When the episode
Not
comes
for me.
up.
Not
If you
for
know it, we'll beep it out. But I bet you won't know it. Here we go. Okay, thank you guys for playing. Name that video part.
I probably could have got that one.
Yeah?
Yeah.
We'll bleep it out if you got it.
I'll just answer it by saying this.
I award you no points,
None.
and may God have mercy
Back
on
to
your
0.
soul.
Back to 0.
I was hoping you'd get it wrong so I could say that in the first round. That's what is that?
I don't know what that's
it's,
from, but that's great.
Billy Madison when they were doing the test. He's like, we are all now officially dumber.
Yeah,
for hearing-
dumber for hearing what you said.
You did great. You got it right.
That's
Kyle
incredible.
Clancy, Full Metal Edges. By the way,
At the opening shot in that, Danny smashes the videotape over my head.
absolutely. One thing doing my research in this, talking to Louis Vito, he's like, Dingo's incredible in the sense that he can be in a room full of Fortune 500 CEOs and not even know that they're Fortune 500 CEOs, but just be in a room with all these people. And by the end of it, they'll be best friends with them. And where do you think that skill set comes from and is developed? And do you want to just talk about that?
Man, I think you're just kind of born with it.
Yeah.
Like in 2007 or 2008, 2009, I started finding myself in different rooms, and I just kind of realized that I have a power of being able to go into a room and be impressionable in a good way. So I just kind of, took that philosophy and whatever room I was in, I was able to be impressionable. Not even if you meet that person, you know what I mean? You're going to be in a room and not meet somebody, but they know you're in that room and they're like, fuck, who's that guy? I was very good at being able to do that. I think you're just born with it.
I guess it's also about knowing that you have it and actually acting on it, huh?
Yeah.
'Cause
Yeah.
You do have that effect for sure.
So what do you, not to be like, what is it that you do here? No, but at Monster, your role is you go to NASCARs and you fucking, I can't even explain. Can you try to just explain?
Man,
the
I don't think they
Monster?
can. I don't think they can. I think sales will tell you I do one thing, marketing will tell you I do one thing, CEO will tell you I do one thing.
As long as he's cutting the checks, though, it's all good.
It's I think again, it's just knowing you have skill sets, right? And I've been in a company so long. I'll never forget the first time I met Rodney Sachs, who's the CEO, and it was me and Deerdick together, and he sat on the ground and talked to me. and we were at Supercross, I think, in Vegas, and I just remember being like, dude, that guy's pretty genuine. South African, Rodney and Hilton, the two owners, South African guys, and I just remember how genuine he was, and I'll never forget that, and I also think I was like one of the first people to like religiously wear a Monster hat. I wasn't told that I had to. It was just kind of back in the day, I was getting paid by Oakley. I'd been with them since I was a kid. Monster come along, and it was like Monster and Oakley and kind of Boost Mobile were in there at the time, and I just kind of became the face of those three brands, and I religiously put them on every day. I put my Monster hat on, put my Oakley sunglasses on, and hang my Boost Mobile phone around my neck, and off I go. And I became this like public ambassador to these pretty big companies, and I knew the responsibility. And back then they were using me more so to, come and host an event. And then it was like, oh, we could market him because he's pushing out logos on the TV show. I saw what Deerdick had more so done in Robin Big, and then the Jackass guys of BAM and those guys, how they were able to like market these brands to these bigger companies, and the first time I was on MTV, I did some pretty big things for like Oakley, and these people that were like, how the hell did you do that? And it was following a trend of like, all right, I see what's going on here, and I think I can partake in this, and people want their logos to be put where you typically couldn't get them. And I was able to like do that really well, to the point to where the TV show became an advertisement for Oakley and Monster. It was just one giant billboard that they weren't paying the network for. We were just making sure it's in our contracts that we could market how the fuck we wanted to, so it's like free marketing. You had the foresight to actually include that. Yeah, and they're paying us, but like they're not paying the network. The network wishes they were, and the network had probably done things differently. They, would have got a nice check out of them. We were able to, put companies in places that they weren't, and I just kind of ended up becoming like an encyclopedia at Monster Energy. I've been hosting sales meetings there for a long time now, and yeah, I get sent to NASCAR, and Monster did the title sponsorship of NASCAR 2017, and Monster sends me, and I show up in a race suit, a fire suit, and it's fucking hilarious, because we're kind of making fun of them, but here I am, and we're kind of sticking it to them, and the next thing they know, they got to put up with me for however many years, and I'm like, the sidekick to Kurt Busch. We win the Daytona 500 the first day we showed up, because NASCAR Daytona 500 is first. Their biggest event happens first. We show up. Kurt Busch wins the Daytona 500. I'll never forget this. We're on you're going to like this one. Yeah. We're on the podium, and it's me, Mark Hall, the president, and Mark Hall created the can and the logo and creates all the flavors, was the original president. He's like he's a badass. You know what I mean? And everyone at the company looks up to him, and it's me. We're on the Daytona 500 podium. We just won the Daytona 500. It's me, Rob Gronkowski, and Mark Hall. Gronk had just missed the Super Bowl because of injury that the Patriots won. Mark elbows Gronk. It's the three of us. I'll never forget this. As the confetti and champagne's flying everywhere, pit crew's going crazy. Elbows him, looks at him plain in the eye, and said, "I never missed a college football game in my life, you pussy." And Gronk just looks at me, and I got a couple beers in my pocket. I slide in my beer. I'm like, "You're good, dude."
Holy shit, man.
And then says, because they created the drink, there was the drink, the Gronk drink that was Patriot colors, and it was supposed to kind of taste like a Red Bull. And he's like, I gotta fix your flavor, son. Do it. It's not quite right. We gotta get it down. I was just like, holy shit. Welcome to Monster Gronk.
Did you know much about NASCAR before you got in
Nothing.
that scene? Yeah, that's what I figured.
Nothing. I like
you just
cars.
showed up and you were yourself.
Yeah, exactly. But for Monster, it's just kind of grown. And it's I treat it like it's my own company. They've treated me very well over the years. I've gotten to do a lot of cool sales stuff. I've been able to go to a lot of cool events, F1 stuff, the NASCAR stuff, all the action sports stuff we do, all the stuff under Dresser. I was at the original UFC fight where we were the title sponsor, where we first just became the sponsor, and it was me, Dresser, and Hans, and the deal had fallen through. It was in Vegas, and we watched them pull the mat up. They pulled the mat up, the Monster logo on, and put another mat down because legal hadn't agreed. So we'd been there to be the new sponsors, whatnot. Dana White's like, hey, shaking your hand, nice to meet you. And they fucking pull the mat up. And the first official Monster UFC was Staples Center Ronda Rousey, where she just plows in and rips that girl's arm off in like 12 seconds. But it's just cool to be in places like that and watch it grow, you know. And Cody's like a mastermind on like being able to find Niger at the time and put him on when he was a young kid, being able to like spot the areas of marketing, being able to see the potential that MMA was going to be able to have, put Hans in there for UFC and Bellator, and like everything we go and we kind of dominate, you know. And it's crazy, like, you know, like I had the original Diamond Monster chain. Me, Deerdick, and Danny have the three original ones that were made, and then that became a thing, right? All the athletes wanted their Diamond Monster chains, so you become this elite status. And like, you know, Conor McGregor wants his chain. Conor McGregor, one of the most famous guys in the world, you know, at the time, is running a Diamond Monster chain every single day because he wants to. It's fucking, you know, we made the lifestyle what it is, and people look at the brand, and I think, you know, I've been able to play a huge part in the way that people look at Monster, and not just to, you know, be out there representing, but to be inside, to be in the guts of it, to be able to throw cool parties and bring, you know, the game or these rappers, and just do these things in ways that you can't really do it, you know, and in ways that it's like, hey, like we got a party in Aspen for all of our athletes, and that we do at the top there, and you know they wanted the game. Okay, the game says he'll do it. I got to figure out whatever price we got to pay him, and it's all under a budget. This is like calling the game and being like, hey, like a mate rate type, like, yeah, Dingo, I'll do it for you, like whatever, like, but I don't want to fly. Okay, cool, we'll get you a tour bus. Send him like 6 buses, and I'm like, all right, like. The bus he's probably going to pick is the one with the big bed in the back. And how many people are you bringing, Chuck? And he's like, oh, you know, they'll just be me and my band. Okay, cool. So we get the bus. We're going to put you up at the St. Regis, blah, blah, blah. Stressing that he's not going to come, not going to show up. I personally put however much money in this dude's bank account. I've got his bank account details. Like, working with rappers is something that I wish on nobody, because it's not an easy thing. It's great when you get them on stage and people are happy to see the performance, but what happens to make the performance? So anyway, I get a call from the bus driver at 4 a.m. in Calabasas, and he's like, Dingo, there's 30 people on this bus. 30 people. Supposedly coming to the St. Regis, staying in the St. Regis. St. Regis is like, there's a gangbanger coming to stay here. This place is going to fucking burn to the ground or whatnot. And it's like, I'm like, all right, like finding rooms to put Chuck in and whatnot. It happens. Game comes and does like an amazing performance, but it's being able to do cool shit like that for a big brand. You know what I mean? It's like, it's being able to utilize your relationships and then know you're working hard to get them the result they want, you know? And, you know, I got a pretty good track record with them. I haven't let too many people down. So,
you ever heard the conspiracy theories about Monster Energy?
I mean, I hear everything.
You have that it's the work of Satan.
Yeah,
there's a whole conspiracy about it. It's insane.
YouTube lady. Is it true?
No, I mean I hope not. Otherwise, right. I'm the devil. Maybe
going back, the marketing strategy though is fucking genius. If you really break down that, I'm fascinated by it because you're like, okay, like. Robin Big or whatever show, let's say it's like, you know, if you guys want to buy an advertisement for TV, it'll be like $3 million. Or we'll take this pro athlete, pay him who knows, let's say a couple hundred thousand for just for the sake of the story, and we'll get him in the hat, and then he's going to be on the show, and it's like, you know, we're at the bottom of the half pipe run. There's a good chance that guy's going to win X Games. Let's make sure he's in a Monster helmet, and then, you know, boom, instead of paying, you know, for an ABC ad for millions of dollars, you got this guy at the bottom of the pipe, you get in your advertisement, and it's like, yeah. Do you want to talk about any of that marketing stuff? Because I think it's fascinating.
Yeah, man. It's like, dude, I've been around marketing my entire life, basically. It's all I know, you know? So it's like you guys, it's like a fascination of like, you know, you see something done, you're like, how'd they do that? You know, or how's that replica? Or like, how can you replicate that? Or how can you go down a path to like, you know, and I think where Monster's done very well, you know, is you find the right person to put your logo on, and that person's going to drive your brand. Whereas other corporate companies will be like, we tell the athlete what to do. You know, we are bigger than the athlete. Whereas Monster flips it. We don't do traditional TV ads. There's not like a Monster TV campaign. You'll see an ad during a Supercross where we're promoting, Sage Kutzenberg's new snowboard movie, and that'll be a 30-second TV spot, but it's not a Monster ad. You know what I mean? It's like, it's a spot within a TV spot that we already have during an event we already own. You know what I mean? Monster Energy Supercross or Monster Energy's NASCAR or something that's Monster that we'd have, but it's not traditional advertising, right? We pay the athlete to do what they do, and then whether the athlete, the personality, or musician, whoever it is, the musician, well, for somebody that can't talk, I'm not very good at talking sometimes. and they do all the work for you. Let them, perfect example, Axel Hodges, freestyle motocross guy, probably one of the most well-known now freestyle motocross guys, but not a traditional freestyle motocross guy. Almost, you look at him, and I think he's like a snowboarder or a skateboarder. That's the vibe he puts off. That's kind of the people he hangs out with, and the way that he rides his motorbike. He looks like a skateboarder somewhere. He's got style, and it's not about doing double backflips or whatever it is. It's about doing cool shit. And you sponsor Axel Hodges. Slaygrounds 3 just came out.
Unreal.
And you put all your money into that guy. And the project that he does with his brother Dirt Shark and the way that is all put together, that is so much more valuable than putting millions of dollars into a TV commercial that nobody gives a shit about. And that's just kind of being Monster's MO from the beginning. Anything we're going to do, we're going to fucking do it right. We're going to own it. X Games, UFC, Bellator, NASCAR, even look at F1, Lewis Hamilton, Team Mercedes now. It's like, I look at, Red Bull's got 4 cars going around the track, let's say, at however many hundreds of millions they're spending on that. We got 2 drivers flying around winning basically every race, and we're paying for a helmet logo and a logo on the suit. We're smoking them every weekend. I enjoy that.
When you were 16, did you ever think you'd blow up so far past snowboarding?
Nah. I always thought I was going to have to move home and build houses. That's why I think I worked so hard, because I didn't.
It was always in the back of your head.
Man, all my friends are like building houses or plumbers or whatever, It's like that's just your traditional Australian route, and I wasn't book smart.
Now, you got on the Jason Ellis show, you fucking Aussies seem to stick together.
Yeah, it's better that way. Man, it's funny, like, we were at, there was, I can't even say whose birthday it was, but there was a birthday, and it's people we kind of all know, and people were, and somebody was talking shit about me and Jason, basically, just that they were basically calling us, like, we're basically, like we're Stone Age people. Like, we're like baboon type style, which I kind of, I think about it and I'm like, fuck, it's kind of fucked up to say that, are we that crazy? But when I look at it, we all kind of raised, like the door was kind of half open. We weren't, our parents were, it was like we kind of raised ourselves and raised by wolves. Most of our families are, not alcoholics, but that's just an Australian trait to have. So it's like, we're all just very similar. And especially in the age demographic of like where I'm at and we're very similar. And I think it's easier for us to stick together. Even in Los Angeles, I've got like a core group of Aussies that I just kind of hang out with.
That's natural. Fuck Massachusetts. I'm from totally different, but we always stick together like
East Coasters
glue,
find East Coasters.
But
yeah.
Going back to earlier, I wanted to ask you this when you were going off earlier. Early days, you came from Australia to the United States to Mammoth at age 16, and you're getting fucked up, and nobody. Can we talk about how you were raised and how? And your mom and
Lane basically raised me.
Yeah, and your mom being okay with it. Let's give Lane the old super. Let's give him a super air horn. All right, that's enough of that. But so yeah, let's talk about that.
Yeah, I don't really know. There was an opportunity. Where I grew up, my brother got involved at drugs at a young age, and there was just always shit was gonna happen in a not a good way. My dad had he was off overseas. My mom had a boyfriend, my stepdad who's kind of like my dad, and helping out, and there was just family. There was just things that kind of weren't right, and the snowboarding opportunity kind of came up, and my mom just kind of was like, fuck it, let it happen. So fun fact, my mom actually lived in Steamboat with me that first year. She sold everything, and then basically we got an apartment, and she was cleaning houses in Steamboat for that first year. And then she had to move back home, and that's when I moved to Mammoth, and we're on the Eddie's couch. So, like, she kind of saw the opportunity. My brother was like, just do it. Dad had kind of gone, and my brother had moved to Queensland and was trying to fix himself up, and everything kind of aligned right for it to happen. And my mom, like, you know, not even that long ago, like, she said, like, she was on the airplane, like, so shit scared. She had no idea what she was doing. And here I am just like, and then when she had to come back and then leave me, she kind of just said she had no choice, you know? And, like, that no choice thing for me, it was, you know, things align, you know, it wasn't easy at times. There were times I felt alone. I felt so like I had to grow up faster in other ways. I had to get street smarts in other ways. And then, you know, I was lucky to have, you know, the Grenade family and all these band of, you know, misfits that were all kind of raising each other on the same way. I was just a little bit younger than all of them, you know? And it just kind of happened. It happened. I look at kids now that are 15, 16, and I'm like, holy shit. You know?
So true. So true.
Yeah.
They are young.
Yeah. You know?
I think it's fascinating, too, because you see a lot of kids grow up, and I see, like, their parents are, like, doing their homework and, like, fucking holding their hand all the way through to college and doing everything for them, paying their rent and all these things. And you like, I mean, personally, the only way I learn is to fall on my face, dude. I need to go out there and fall on my face and learn. And when you kind of have your parents doing everything for you, you know, you don't have your sense of independence. There's always somebody that's going to be like, oh, do this for me, you know, and like, look at yourself. You've probably, I mean, I'm guessing, you know, is it safe to say you're massively independent from having that at a young age?
Oh, yeah. Yeah. Independent for a long time. You know, I think, like, there's, areas now where and I'm still learning, you know, I'm 35 now, and I'd say, like, the work I've done on myself in the last 5 years has been the most important work I've ever done on myself, you know, and I'm still learning, and I'm always going to learn. I think, like, if you think you've got it all figured out, well, that's when you've got nothing figured out, you know? So I am thankful, you know, and it's even like there are girlfriends along the way that have, like, made me who I am, that I think, like, you know, had helped me out and done things for me and made me a better person, that if I didn't have that girlfriend at that time teaching me those things, I probably still wouldn't know that now. And I'm thankful for that too, you know. It's just, yeah, but it's weird, you know, like, my dad, like, ended up, you know, on his own and did his own kind of thing. And you know, I feel like in some ways I'm, like, living out, like, what he always really wanted to do, you know? He wanted to, like, go and make it right for our family and do good, and he just got, in the process, he ended up being gone for 20 years, you know? And that happened real quick, you know? And for me, I think it's a little different, you know? So I think I'm fortunate of that, you know? I lost my brother to suicide, like, 2 years ago. And, like, that's made me grow up a lot. There were 3 kids left behind and his wife and these things that, like, I've had to, like, step in and do things that, like, you wish upon no one, but, like, that'll also make you grow up real quick, you know, and fucking, you know, throw some ice cold water on your face and, you know, all right, we got to keep moving, you know, and it's things like that have helped me who I am now, you know, and it's like, I'm all right, like, with my dark days, and I would be lying if I still don't have dark days. I definitely do, but the brighter days really overshine the dark days, and having those dark times and seeing that dark light, I think, is half the reason why I, like, try and shine the way I do. You know, I put on a happy face, and I'm able to, like, orchestrate something that I don't think many people are able to orchestrate, or have a feeling of that power to where, you know, you got an idea, you can go get it done, or you can, and I can feel things, I can see it, and I go get it done.
Absolutely. Yeah, the passion pours out of you, and when you're passionate about something and the way you speak, and it comes through in your mannerisms, and people will follow you into battle, man. And and I'm sure that's the effect that you have. And I'm hearing so much just good advice, because it's just like, it's not what you know, it's who you know. You could have a college degree and whatever it is, and that is great for a lot of people. I'm not trying to discredit that, but it's like, you're in the business of, like, relationships and people, and you know, it's like an untangible thing, but you've created your own lane.
Think about this. 3.9 million kids graduated college last year here in America. 3.9 million kids graduated college that are going to go work where?
It's a harsh market.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like, COVID hits, you like studying to do some industry now that's going to pour out and not be here. It's like, it's crazy to, and I agree, you know, if you're going to be a doctor or create economy on Mars, go to school for 9 years, you know, like you need to know these things, but like.
We need those people, right?
We do need those people, but there's so much more out there. There's so many new emerging industries, and like I think it's in our power and our duty, and something that I take serious is finding out what those industries are and then showing kids that path. Because if we don't, we're going to be fucked standing at a bunch of kids that don't have jobs. And then where are we in 10 years, you know? And it's like, you've got to think about the moving cycle of how do we keep evolving, and we've got to set our kids up. And if we don't set our kids up, we're fucked.
And more kids up to like 40 have moved back in with their parents due to COVID.
You know, I want to talk about this because I was thinking about this, and this maybe isn't relevant, but I'm going to say it anyway. But, you know, I think about why is it harder for kids nowadays, right? And in order to get stuff done, you need to be like honed in tunnel vision focus. And nowadays we have all this shit coming at us. Like, let's say you want to dive into a project and just say build a fucking table for the sake of this example. It's gonna, if you're honed in and you're doing it like nobody's distracting you, you can get it done rather quickly. But when you hear your phone's buzzing and you got, oh, this person messaged me, this person commented, oh, I got a phone call. There's this element of distraction that I don't think we had when you had your Boost mobile phone swinging around your neck. People aren't DMing you every 2 seconds. And so because you know what I mean? So you might get a phone call here or there.
We had chirp. You had your buddies, you could chirp.
And what about the 1,000 YouTube videos I got to watch before I make this table because I got to listen to like 20 people. I got to know everything about it before I fail.
You did good.
But then going back to like another thing, going back to I like what you said about I don't want to go back to doing construction, and I think that, you know, maybe I sound like a chapped old head with this, where it's like, you know, people, I think in our older generations, if you look at our great grandparents, they fucking worked their asses off, and then slowly it's kind of just gotten like a little bit softer and a little bit softer and a little bit softer every generation, to where like I look at, you know, my dad is much tougher than I am, I feel like, in a lot of those ways, right? And so like as the younger generations come out, it seems like they, you know, there needs to be a shift in like priding yourself on work ethic, I think. What are your thoughts on that?
100%, man. Like, I've been put in some weird situations in life, right? Through the foundation, I support the Los Angeles Police Department. People look at me like I'm fucking crazy. I'm also like, man, when you get pulled over, you flash a little card.
It goes a long way.
Yeah, a long way. You know what I mean? I don't get tint tickets, okay?
I need to get one of those cards.
You know, but I got to sit with the chief of police of Los Angeles and his team, you know, and I said, hey, having breakfast with these guys at the LA Police Academy. It's some cool shit, you know. You're out the shooting range with the fucking chief of police, and I was able to have a breakfast and sit at this table and be like, I want to raise a hands at how many of your hard-earned dollars that you told, that money that you put into your kids' college fund was going to help. How many raise a hands? It was at a table of like 15 people. It was like 75% raised their hands. All their kids are living back home in their house and have no job opportunities. Nothing. Just a bunch of wasted money because we've sent them down a wrong path. And I think it's like, listen, I think there's more job opportunity now than there ever has been. It's just different. You can't learn a lot of this stuff at a traditional school, you know, and people now, especially even people with money, like even all that scandal of like people fucking paying fucking people to put their kids in that fancy school, and their fancy people is because it's relationships. Their kids, it's so important for their kids not to get that degree, but to get that degree at that school because they're going to spend 4 years around other people that have relationships that can get them jobs. Now it's not about having the degree, it's about having the degree and the relationship, and that we've overeducated people in areas that there's no work for them. But I truly believe that there's more opportunity now than there ever has been. It's just different. And your great-grandparents, your grandparents, our parents, Middle America, it's not understandable to them. They don't get it. They don't get these new opportunities. They don't understand how it works because it wasn't taught to them. You don't know anything until you know it. Right? And it's like, it's about educating in a different way. And I truly believe that. And I think that, you know, colleges, for example, with COVID, everything that's going on, they kept the sports programs going, didn't they?
Yeah.
Huh.
grandparents went to war, so they know how to be tough.
That's
and
a
they're
great
like,
point.
these guys are soft. It's because they didn't face the Great Depression.
Yeah.
They didn't have to go to war, get drafted.
We're basically in that right now.
Yeah, now maybe they're
You know
going to
what I
start
mean?
hardening up again because of what's going to happen.
Yeah, then going back to some of the stuff with school, just a random thought that popped in my head. But, you look at some of the stuff, to me, I don't know enough about it, could be wrong, but it kind of seems outdated. Because when you're looking at, okay.
It's so outdated.
If you want to get a degree in marketing, right? Like, they're maybe just starting to teach you about Facebook and then Instagram. By the time they teach you about Instagram, the shit's fucking outdated.
Yeah, there's some new shit.
Some school
You're hitting
books,
a moving target.
Some public school books, it was every 7 years they updated them. Imagine if the last 7 years, you didn't know anything that happened in the last 7 years. How much has it changed in the last
So
12
much.
months?
Yeah.
24 months, 2, 3, 4. It's like
Whole new world.
we live in a world where every 12 months is a whole new world.
Yeah.
Like, fuck, I didn't know about that,
Totally. And it's also a great age of information, being opportunistic. It's like, really, if you're interested in shit, you can nerd out on podcasts, you can watch YouTube videos, you can find that information on your own if you need to. And I'm not trying to fucking knock college, because I think the other thing that is really important about college, that I'm going to say, be devil's advocate here, is that the importance of being able to complete tasks in a timely manner and being able to be able to say, hey, you need to get this done, and getting it done. And maybe, just being able to incrementally have consistency and, with school, being able to show up. Hey man, you got to fucking show up. I think those are some of the more important things.
Well, 100%, but think about this, the basics they don't teach, and I agree with that. I'm not saying, hey, everybody drop out of college. That's the last thing I'd say, but I think there's a lot of people that get degrees that they ain't never going to use.
True.
And I think that, you need to teach kids about their finances. You need to teach kids that they don't teach in generic school, which is, when you go into the real world, the first thing you need to learn. So you're going to see Google and Amazon. I think Google just released a cool, they're working on like courses where at $300, you do a 4-month course, and it's a finance course. There are things like that are so important to no matter what you go into life. You need to know about your finances. You need to know about insurance. You need to know about how the general life works. And I think that we're fundamentally done things a little backwards or not correctly on why are we teaching kids some crazy weird algebra shit that ain't anybody gonna use? Why don't we teach them some numbers and teach them about how they have to pay taxes? Because I wish somebody told me that.
Yeah.
Uncle Sam, it's this guy's gonna come knocking on your door after you've, got a shoebox full of letters from the government. You're I wonder when they're gonna.
You had one of those too, huh?
Yeah, I had a couple shoeboxes.
I still have one.
I'm just gonna put this over here. Not look at it for a while. We're just gonna not look at that one for a while.
Well, and like you said, if you get your kid in the right school, those are the people that are going to be running the world in the future. So it's all relationships, less so than what you're learning.
That's it.
And even in our world in snowboarding, you see that some of these guys that have the jobs, they all went to school back east together, like T-Bird and Tanner and
That's it.
all these
Snowboarding,
guys.
all of it. It's
Yeah.
all. It's like
they
the
all
movie
went to
industry.
school,
It's
so they
you're
hire the
man,
next guy.
It's weird. The same guy did the lighting that did the Rocks movie or that. It's all relationships.
Yeah.
In the snowboard world, it's so small. And that's when I was announcing contests. It was the same group of people moving around. You got the people running the magazines. You got the team managers. You've got the event people. You got the people winning, and then you got the people hosting. And you're all become.
They're all moving around.
Yeah,
huh?
they're all moving around together.
Yeah, true.
Absolutely. That's a great lesson, because, a lot of the aspiring snowboarders, they think it's just about their tricks. Oh, I did this hard trick and fucking I should be getting paid. But it's nobody wants to fucking hang out with you. I don't know what you want me to say. I don't know what you want me to say. If you don't want to hang out with you, you're not going to get on the team.
Be a likable person. Be a nice person.
Yeah.
And people will like you.
That's kind of harsh advice, but it's the relationships are just as important as the tricks.
Yep.
You got to be fucking good. Then you got to be cool.
Yep.
And sometimes there's one can outweigh the other.
Back in the day, you didn't even have to be that good. You just had to be cool. Guys like me could get sponsored.
100%. Give one for me. I almost had a pro model snowboard. I ended up having a pro model snowboard with Oakley and Monster way down the line, but I almost had a pro model on 5150. I was on the pro 5150 team, and Todd Richards drew the graphics up. And then my 5150 ad, I'm on a canoe, I'm on a Danny Kass canoe.
Dude, and I remember my most notable is, I think it's Video Gangs. There's like a crane shot of you,
Opening
the
section.
Forum Youngbloods.
Yep.
And which one are you?
I'm the first one. They called me the jet ski. I did like the leech slide on the
You
box.
did? You Smith grinded it.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, those are not really in style anymore.
Oh, they're not?
Maybe they're coming back.
Man.
It was kind of a no-fly zone for a long time.
Right. I flew when
The
it
Smith?
was
The Zeech?
I think the Zeech.
Let's do a hot take on the Zeech right now, off the cuff.
Okay.
What do you think about it?
Good for him.
No, I mean yourself doing the grind. And what do you think of yourself? Like,
doing the Zeech? You know, you know what's funny? It's like fucking confusing me. Zach, Hannah, and Carl Clancy all kind of have given me my name. I cannot. Every single one of them will tell you that it was them, but it was
named you the Dingo.
Yeah, it was one of them. It came from one of them. And I spent a lot of time with Zach when I was a kid. And I love Zach. I don't know. I definitely wouldn't do one today.
He left his mark.
That's probably because I couldn't. Probably because I couldn't do it anymore.
I think they're coming back into style.
You think they're going to come back?
Yeah.
Listen, we need to talk about Wild Mikes. The fact is, they are a sponsor. And you signed a contract guaranteeing them certain concessions. One of them being spot on the show.
Well, that's where I see things just a little differently. Contract or no, I will not bow to any sponsor.
I'm sorry you feel that way, but basically, it's the nature of the beast.
Maybe I'm wrong on this one, but for me, the beast doesn't include selling out. Stoney, you know what I'm talking about, right?
It's like people only do things because they get paid. And that's just really sad.
I can't talk about it anymore. It's giving me a headache.
Here. Drink one of these.
The Bomb Hole. Banter. Edgy. Cheddar Biscuits.
Look, you can stay here in the big leagues and play by their rules, or you can go back to the farm club. It's your choice.
Yes, and it's the choice of a bomb hole generation. Right now, I think we should maybe get into a guest question. It's presented by Solomon. Here we go.
What's up, Bombhole family? This is Scotty Connerly from Mount Hood, Oregon, calling my Australian brother Dingo to ask if you could run us down what it was like to wake up on a private jet owned by Black Sabbath with Ozzy Osbourne pouring Jack Daniels down your throat as you were sleeping. If you could kind of run down how you ended up on that jet and go through what it was like to wake up and party with those guys, that'd be great. Lots of love. What's up, Chris and Stone? Hope you guys are well. Thanks.
I don't think it was Jack Daniels. I think it was water, but that happened.
There's a big difference between Jack Daniels and water. I like Jack Daniels better.
Yeah. No, he's not throwing alcohol around. But yeah, no, that happened a few times. I don't know. Yeah, me and Kelly have been close, were close for a long time, and I got to know the family and spent a lot of time with the family and ended up, seeing a couple, really cool shows and being in some situations. You're like, wow, can't believe I'm here.
I'm on a private jet with Ozzy Osbourne.
You're a big family friend and that like tight,
Yeah.
right? Wow.
They call those PJ.
TJ, yeah.
Private jet.
We had Ozzy in a couple NASCARs.
Oh, really?
Yeah. Jack and him were filming the travel show they had going, and he came and hung, and it was cool. It's cool.
Must be a pretty cool dude to hang with.
Yeah, I don't think it gets any more iconic. Like, I've been around a lot of famous people or powerful people, and I can tell you that, like, that room, when he walks into the room, I don't care if the last 6 presidents have been there or any other rock star that's still alive. He walks into the room, he commands, and all attention on Ozzy Osbourne. It's pretty cool.
Wow.
Let's give him an air horn.
Yeah.
Bud, you got a Pagey?
I got a Pagey. It kind of goes back to your older days with the Grenade Crew, I think. This is from Mark. He wants to know about the time you and your chick at the time got a snowmobile covered by the train plow at Kingvale. Also about Schiff explaining space dogging.
Yeah, so we were, what was the name of the mountain they had?
Kingvale.
Kingvale. Whew. Before its time. The boys just got a bit of land. I think it was a tube hill, and it was after, I think, the North Star, one of the Vans events or something up there, and we were ripping snowmobiles, and I'd ripped up over the train track and then got it stuck on the train track, and as it's stuck, I look up, and you can just hear the train horn, and it's a huge snowplow, and it's pushing like a 40-foot bank. And we've got the rope out, and the conductor's out on the thing like, guys, what the fuck are you doing? And we've got the rope, and I'm on the back of the snowmobile. And I think it was Casillo maybe that, like, we've got the tight rope, and I'm just like, I'm not bailing. It was my chick's snowmobile. It wasn't even mine. And I'm like, all right, I'm just kind of on, and I had the confidence that it was going to happen, and we ripped it out probably 10 seconds. So if anything had gone wrong, I'd fallen off, snowmobile, gone. And we ripped it out, and that thing blew by, pushing a 40-foot snowbank. And
wow.
Probably one of the scariest things I've ever... Yeah.
Yeah, anything went wrong, you were probably toast.
Man, you know that moment in the movie where Stand By Me, they look up and the train's coming?
His foot stuck, maybe? Or they're on the...
No, they're on the track.
They're running on the bridge.
Yeah, that was my moment.
That was that moment.
Yeah.
I'm going to do a side note here. Buds one time took a shit in a tunnel. And can you talk about that story?
It was very similar story. I was in a tunnel in Poland shitting.
Train tunnel.
A train tunnel. And a train came, and Cole Taylor, the filmer, saw me walk in. You know, my friend at Tech 9 back in the day. Saw me walk in the tunnel and then saw the train come and pretty much thought I died. But I had come out the other end just in time and got my shit out. And then ran before the train comes. It's a very similar story to yours.
Wow.
I was taking a crap.
What was part 2 of the Patreon?
Oh, it was Schiff talking about space dogging.
Yes.
Does that jog a memory for you?
Nah, space dogging does. It's I don't know. It's not on the top of my brain. I'd have to like phone a friend for that one right now.
Oh, it's like who wants to be a millionaire? Can I use a phone a friend?
Can we call Schiff? Either way, that snowmobile story was amazing.
Yeah, space dogging too. It's like it's gonna have something to do with shit. It's gonna have something to do with shit. You know, that's all I'm saying. But I'd need to phone a friend on that one.
You know, one thing we breezed over that is fascinating to me is that you are friends with Rob Gronkowski.
Mm-hmm.
What's that like?
It's crazy. You know what's crazy is like since the moment we met, I think we've known each other now 4 or 5 years, and we're just kind of similar. It was really funny is MTV, through the days of MTV was really trying to find a home for me. You know, after the show, and Jeff Tremaine had supported me, Lauren Dolgen had supported me, who basically like was the developer at MTV for Jackass and Robin Big and all these shows, you know, and you know, there'd been a game show idea where the Gronk and his brothers were gonna do like a battle, like a gladiator type show, and then they wanted me to host it, you know, and then that was kind of, I guess, the start of it. And then the Monster thing kind of came out, and they'd worked on a deal to have a football player. It wasn't a deal to have a football player. It was an opportunity kind of came up, and especially for Monster in the New England area, they'd been looking to like up sales and do these things. And, you know, all right, if like, you know, Monster's not typically putting on what they call stick and ball people, but if they're going to put them on, they're going to put the right person on. And who's the right person in an NFL that fits Monster Energy? It's Rob Gronkowski.
Absolutely.
You know what I mean? The guy's a party animal. The guy's winning Super Bowls. The guy's hanging out with Tom Brady. It's like a bit of a trifecta.
He's got a bus with his entire family partying on it at every football game.
Yeah.
Not to interrupt, but continue. Yeah.
Yeah, and that's the thing. There's like 5 brothers. 3 of them have played professional football, and like, you know, I just kind of the dad Gordy is like a fucking legend. And I just, you know, through Mitch Covington, our head of sports marketing, who does all the big Monster deals, you know, I just had been in the right place, and they'd taken me around, and I just kind of become friends with the entire family, you know. And it's, you know, what you see is what you get, you know. It's he's a fun guy to be around, and that's the thing. It's like we did his retirement party that he ended up coming out of retirement for, and at the Palms, you know, and he's got, at the retirement party, it's like he's got a traveling party. I think it was like, 60, 70 people. I'm like, that's cool. You know what I mean? Like, you go, all right, we're going to do Gronk's retirement party. Yeah, they're coming with like 60, 70 people. Okay, cool. Let's facilitate it. Let's have a good time. Funny story. So we did the Gronk Beach in Miami last year for Super Bowl. Piss and rain on the beach. I think we had Diplo, Rick Ross, DJ Carnage. Keep going down the line. There was like 7 rain, and it was pouring rain all day, and it was so weird because Bill Belichick, I'm standing up on the thing, and I see Bill Belichick walk in. This is the day before Super Bowl. Obviously, Patriots weren't in it. Off-duty Belichick. Got all these rings on. He's got his little shorts on. He hung out all day at this party that's pissing rain. We're all drunk as shit. The Gronks are drunk. Like, it was like raging rain. And in my head, I'm like, why is he here? He knew what was about to happen because it was that next day after the Super Bowl that then Brady announced he was going to Tampa Bay and that Gronk was coming. And from my understanding, they wanted to trade Gronk, and Gronk's body was beat up. He'd been getting beat up. You got two big men every week that are their job is to take you down. So his body's fucked. And understanding is that he's like, I am not going to catch anybody. I'm not going to work for anybody that's not Tom Brady.
They tried to trade him and he retired.
He retired, but he never went off the list. He could have run on the football field at any time, right? For any team. He would never was hosting Fox NFL, was on The Masked Singer, was doing all these things. They got him working. God makes Gronk work. He is one of the biggest endorsers out of all athletes around the world, and they're very smart with his money and what he's done. But they put him to work. Sometimes I'm like, man, I feel bad for him. I'm like, he's like, what am I holding? What am I selling? But it's like, man, the guy prints money. But I feel like he was almost happy to go back onto the football field. So he's like, I don't know. My job's now to run around back on a football field. And I just think the whole thing was genius of the way that Tom Brady handled it, the way that it went down. And even in my head, like when it all kind of happened, and I was like, man, what's even weirder is that the Super Bowl is in Tampa Bay. And it was all this just like build up for like what was going to happen. And fuck, it happened. It happened so gnarly. Like when Gronk got that first touchdown, I was like, it's over. It's over. Mahomes got the concussion 2 weeks before. He was rattled. They just looked rattled. And I was like, they've been playing Gronk differently all year. They've been utilizing him differently. And then Super Bowl, back to what it was 3-4 years ago. Let's just run it. First 2 touchdowns. Fucking.
He picked the Super Bowl to show up.
It's exactly.
Great time to show up, Gronk.
Great time to show up. Yeah. So it's just it's an amazing story, and I feel, they're just situations. You're like, man, it's crazy that, you're just amongst those people and in those situations, and they're just like any of us. You know what I mean? It's like they're just genuine, cool people, and I think that's why you're able to find these people when you go on this journey of life and you're attracted to certain people, and it's just, we all have, maybe something about us that keeps us together, keeps us a little bit wild, maybe keeps people on their toes, but that's the exciting part, right?
God damn it. I want to be friends with Gronk, too. Let me know.
We can make that happen.
Holy shit.
I actually have, it wasn't even wear it, but I it's gone missing. I have the Patriot Super Bowl with the logo jersey that's signed that ended up going missing.
Went missing?
Yeah.
Chris would have loved that.
Isn't that crazy?
Yeah, that thing's worth a couple of biscuits.
Yeah, it would be.
Hey, we didn't talk much about Cheddar Biscuits. Cheddar Biscuits, increment of money we bring up on the show quite a bit. Let's just do nostalgia because, let's say during your era of filming Danny and the Dingo.
Yep.
Can we just get like a ballpark of how many biscuits you're earning maybe between sponsors and the show?
Oh, biscuits.
Cheddar biscuits.
Cheddar.
Money.
Yeah, I mean, I feel like I put myself in a position where I didn't have to worry about work for a while. That's a good position to be in.
We're going Louis
So
Vito.
is he doing a dodge?
Yeah, he's dodging like the Matrix right now.
He's dodging.
I lived in Malibu. Is that a dodge?
Are we gonna get a? Are we gonna keep? He's like the Matrix. They know how to defer.
They just know what's up.
So we're not gonna get a number.
An Australian mind trick coming out.
Yeah, Australian mind trick. You can't talk numbers.
Here's another
even
one.
when people talk numbers, all right, this is how I look at it. When people talk numbers, I halve it. When people tell me what they make, I like halve it.
Cut it in half.
Half it.
Yeah.
Well, there's actually a Patreon question from Magic Narwhal. He's been throwing a lot of questions at us lately. He wants to know what kind of cheddar biscuit you were pulling from appearance fees back in the day at clubs. I don't know if you do that anymore, so maybe you can talk about it.
Okay, so yeah, I can talk about that. I think I was like with Lil Jon and like that whole era of like what was going on.
Showing
Dude,
up
I was
at
getting
clubs.
paid $2,500 a pop to show up and spray champagne.
And that was it. That was your only job.
That was my job.
It's a good fucking job.
That's a great job.
That's a great job.
And hang with Lil Jon. Just
You know Louis Vito's in the background somewhere.
Yeah.
Louis got a
Vito's
bottle.
hanging.
He's not even drinking, but he's just
not
there.
drinking. He's got a bottle.
Yeah, he's got a bottle and he's not drinking. Talk about good times.
Yeah, man.
COVID,
Talk
you
about
can't
when
even do those things
When do
anymore,
those
huh?
times even come back? I feel bad for the kids. I feel like
Those times might
that's
never come
buttoned
back.
up for a minute. We go to Florida. It's fine.
Yeah, true. Florida, there's
Well,
just...
COVID doesn't exist in Florida.
Appearance fees all day in
COVID
Florida.
doesn't exist in Cancun, Cabo, or Florida.
Yeah, so true.
Holy shinto beans. One thing we haven't been talking about is your new thing you're doing with Danny.
Yeah, man, it's the cycle of life, eh? It's like things, and we see a lot of people redoing things that they've done a while ago, and that's because it works, right? Our show worked, our relationship always worked, and we're just at a point in time right now where we're launching a new product called Unleashed, and it's going to be podcast format, YouTube format, more of a talk show style setup. And every week we'll just be interviewing our like monster athletes, musicians, entertainers, some employees. I want to showcase the company from the inners, right? Of like, even how you're talking about marketing. I want to have some of the VPs on there talking about how they do what they do. Like, how did you get Conor McGregor to do what you do? And I think it's very important, and the Monster Aesthetics is that we put that out there, and I'm excited that, we've got that underway, and that launches in the next couple of weeks here. So that's on Spotify, YouTube, and then Apple. We've filmed a couple. Najee Houston will be the first one coming out.
Beautiful.
Yeah.
Amazing to me that you and Danny, after all these years, it's so rad that you're still working together and putting out. That's big. It's awesome because so many people fall out.
It's like a Tom Brady, Rob Gronkowski combination. You can't go wrong.
You can't go wrong.
You can't go wrong, and it's like
You
at the end
have
of the
each other's
day,
back, and boom, let's do this.
I feel very fortunate about what Jason Ellis did for me. And how I was able to learn. Every time I'm in a situation, I learn. Like even when I was back announcing the U.S. Grand Prix, I would note things, you know what I mean? And that's when I would start building my own file of the athletes, and you build and you learn. I'd look at what the other people were doing, and that's the same with Danny. We had a successful recipe that worked, and it worked for a long time. We did that thing for 6 years. And the way that our relationship is, it just made sense for us to take it to that platform and be able to continue it, showing up at X Games and being the unofficial guys that are making videos, making fun of what's going on or making light of it. It's I like that, you know what I mean? And everybody else likes it. I like being on top of the pipe in a gas mask suit, and Sean blowing by, or Scotty James, blowing by, and them laughing about what we're doing and actually watching the funny videos we're putting out. And I just we live in a time where it's I think that I want to make light of a situation. I also want to make people laugh and smile. And I think me and Danny are able to make people laugh and smile. So Unleashed, fueled by Monster Energy, with Danny and myself, it's not going to be much different than what we did. We're just not traveling. We're sitting in a room, and we're just going to have these short conversations, with what's going on with some of our coolest athletes, entertainers, musicians, employees, whatever it is. And just like you guys, you know what I mean? You guys tell a very in-depth story, whereas I want to be quick, short, fun, and just kind of
hit on it and move on.
Hit it and quit it.
Dude, it's awesome to hear how calculated you are throughout all these years to what you've become. It's no fluke where you're at, man.
I appreciate that.
You've paid attention, and people might not have think that seeing you just out there partying and doing your thing, but you're a calculated dude.
Man, it's crazy because I think I had this persona that stuck, right? And it came really early on in my life. And I think there was maybe a point where I was definitely loose. Out of control, even, for a small amount of time.
Let's just say out of control.
For sure.
For the sake of the story.
But for most of it, I've kind of been there, And I appreciate that, I always keep my ear to the ground. I keep my ear to the ground in snowboarding and action sports, but then I also keep my ear to being open and going into new situations and learning and not being like, oh, fuck that, that's not cool. I like, NASCAR. Not many people want to put their hands up to go to Middle America every week. And I was like, man, it's cool. I'm going to go, hang out and drink moonshine with people in Middle America, with Middle Americans. I was like, that's cool.
And I bet they love you.
One thing I'm personally interested in, and I think our listeners maybe too, is that, you've taken this untangible road to success, which is a shitty word don't like to use, but we'll just use it for the sake. Where you've ended up has been, it's just been untraditional. Now, you've essentially found yourself, right? You found your lane. You found, whatever it is about yourself that people are interested in. And do you have any advice for some kid out there that's lost, that's trying to find their lane?
I think it is the most important thing is you want to be yourself, right? You want to be you and always stay true to you. Even if that means upsetting people or not what other people would think is the right or the most traditional way. If you believe it and you understand it, go and do it. And you're going to figure out how it's going to succeed, right? I think that's the most important thing is don't be intimidated by somebody else's opinion, ever. Opinions are just opinions.
Reminds me of the bucket quote right here. Chris's.
We have a quote we look at. I don't know the key to success, but the key to failure is trying to please everybody. But sorry to interrupt. Go ahead. Sorry.
No, what I was going to say to that is I got a line that I used to use is my biggest failures and my biggest successes. I used to use that when I speak. Every time I failed, every time I hit rock bottom, that's when I was actually my most creative. When I was sitting, dwindling, being like, well, what's next? How am I even going to get through this? And you fall, you hit rock bottom, you have an idea, it doesn't work out, it's a massive failure, you lose money or whatever it is, burn a relationship or whatever happens. But if you learn from that failure, was it really a failure?
Truth.
It's when you do it again and again. You're failing.
Yeah, that's a failure.
But failing and understanding that you're learning something from that, you're going to eventually win.
Failure provides great data.
Yeah.
Oh, this is what I did wrong. Clearly.
Yeah.
It didn't work.
This is where I have room for improvement.
Yeah.
Clearly. And failure is some of the most opportunistic times, I mean, honestly, this thing is a jump-started. You asked earlier off air why the podcast started, and my girlfriend left me at the time, and I was in a bad place right when COVID hit. I got to put my energy towards something.
Yeah. He needed a project.
I needed a project. And it's like those failure, and that was, and failure in a relationship, a lot of data and what I did wrong showed up. And so, there's, I don't know, that just resonated with me, and I'm kind of speaking about why, but and even with COVID, going back to, these are opportunistic times. Like, fuck, if you work at a restaurant and you lost your job, God damn it, that's awful. You own a restaurant or your business has been affected, or your family, or you've lost somebody, like, God damn it, that is fucking awful. Let's not discredit that in the slightest. But, if you can have some foresight, there's a great time to be opportunistic with what's going on, and I think you're doing some of that.
100%,
right?
100%, man. It's like, some extremely smart people that I look up to, I saw them make huge moves in 2008 when the economy crashed, and seeing how they built their brands out of what had happened. And I think I was too young at that time to realize kind of what was going on, but this time around and seeing it and being able to be told to sit still and not being like, oh, I'm too busy, I'm just on this circuit that I'm on, that I was on for however many years, and to be able to sit still and know that what I truly wanted to get out of life, knowing what's important, what's not important, what you've been putting energy into that you don't necessarily need to, what do you want to put more energy into, and you're 100% right. It's like there's a lot of opportunities right now, and man, my heart goes out to anybody that has been affected, the industries, the countries that people have been stuck. Like, there's so much displacement. Like, for example, my father had lived in China for 20 years, man. My dad's back in Australia where I grew up, where he was how 20 years ago, and he worked in the movie theater business. That disappeared. He doesn't even know if he can get back to his home, and he's had to restart his whole life at 60 years of age. Like, that's a displacement, and it's like everyone's been affected differently, and my heart goes out, but it's also, you can't sit and dwell. You gotta move forward. You gotta always keep moving forward, and if keep moving forward means making a couple of mistakes along the way, just go make those mistakes, because I'm telling you, there's a lot of opportunity in the world right now.
Damn it, I'm fired up, bro.
Fired up, dude.
Well, cool, man. I mean, we've been clocking for a minute. I think we're probably getting ready to wrap this thing up. First thing, aside from the Unleashed series you're doing with Monster, what else is next for the Dingo?
It's weird how I can just find your grind, super important to me, and launching that new product is that the new app that we have coming out is very important to me. There seem to be a lot of opportunities coming my way right now, and I don't even think we should really talk about it, but there's a big event company that's for sale, and that's with some of my friends, that's become a pretty high interest, and let's just say if that all goes down the right route, that some things, some really cool things could be in our future, and I think that's for everybody, and some really important people are involved in that, and my fingers are crossed that everything goes the way that it should, and once that announcement or that happens, everybody will know pretty quickly, but it's like, I wish I could say more, and I was telling you, but yep. I really just can't, because I'll put my foot in my mouth and I'll get in a lot of trouble.
You don't want to speak before something's come to fruition, right?
Yeah, exactly, but it's the most exciting thing that's happened to me in a long time, I'll tell you that much, and some of the biggest names in our industry and in festivals around the world are all pretty excited about it. So let's just keep your fingers crossed.
Hope festivals start happening again.
That's it, right? Let's yeah. Let's not put the cart before the horse.
People are ready for it, so it'll happen.
Yeah.
Okay. Well, Dingo, I think we did it, man. We're gonna wrap this thing up. Lastly, do you want to thank anybody before we sign off?
Man, it's like, I thank you guys. You guys are doing a great job. I've seen. I thought it was on for like 2 years. I'm like, so how many of you guys like?
How many years have you guys been going? I'm like,
you look like you got a product that's been going on for a while.
Almost a year.
Yeah, almost a year. That's what I said. I was like, almost a year. 44 weeks.
I guess at this point, it's for me to really thank Pat Bridges, Mark Sullivan, the original whole Grenade crew from Danny, Matt, Hannah, Kyle, Leach, Lane. There's that whole crew. There's a bunch of people that are going to be bummed I didn't mention their names. Keenan Rice, Jamie Curcio. It's just like, I think that all those people I've mentioned have helped shape who I am through the good times and the bad times. And that I think that if it wasn't for those people and the sport of snowboarding in this industry, I don't know what I'd be doing. I could be pretty lost. So I thank just everyone that helped out along the way, and let's just leave it there.
Beautiful.
Props.
Well, we want to say thank you to you guys that listen, watch the podcast. We have another one coming at you next week, next Wednesday. So over and out from the bomb hole. See you then.